Henry, do you have your presentation for tonight, or do you want to, I don't think that I received it by email. Do you want me to give you permission to post it?
Sammy, I did send it to you. And if you could drive the presentation for me, and I'll tell you when to advance slides, please.
Wonderful. Let me grab it.
If you use the PowerPoint version, like the Microsoft Office version, just please hide my notes on the bottom.
Sammy, are you ready?
I am ready. I am not seeing Marcus Alexander. Marcus, are you here? Okay, and Counselor Fox, are you here? Okay, I know they are both joining us, so I will be sending them a message to see where they're at, but we do have a quorum, so we can go ahead and get started. Again, if you're not a city councilor, I'm going to ask that you shut your cameras off. And once the mayor addresses you and calls you for a presentation, you're more than welcome to turn your camera on. Make sure to unmute, and we will get through this.
At this point, I will call the City Council meeting for Coburg to order August 20th. It's 6:01. And we have special guests. Councilor Kyle Blaine has a little quartet of his own that he's raising, and they're going to give us our Pledge of Allegiance for tonight. So thank you to the Blaine family.
Hi, everybody. All right, guys.
Hi. Okay, get around the front, sir.
My neighbors.
Keep hands on your hearts, okay?
Go ahead.
I pledge allegiance
To
to the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Guys, all right, let's go. Let Daddy do this.
Well, thank you to the Blaine family.
You're welcome.
That just makes it so much easier. You just don't think about little things like a Pledge of Allegiance on a Zoom meeting.
It was great. Thank you for allowing us to do that.
Tammy, roll call.
Okay, I have Mayor Smith,
Here.
Counselor Bell is here. Counselor Alexander, still not seeing here. Counselor Blaine is here. Thank you. Counselor Lehman.
Here.
Thank you. Counselor McConnell and
Here.
Counselor Fox is joining us. There is a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. I need to have a host open up my video, apparently.
Hi, this is Sammy.
Back to the
Do I have a host that can activate my video? Well, I'm going to move forward with some comments. There we go.
Oh.
The first thing I want to do is thank the staff for their hard work. This is a tremendous production under normal circumstances, but with the COVID and having to go to Zoom and collecting this materials and setting up different processes for the input, it's an onerous task, and I'm impressed with everybody. Sammy's at the forefront of it, but a lot of the staff has been heavily involved in this. And just to give anybody else an example of what we're dealing with, this is our packet that we were reading. And I will tell you that this is not all of it, because I left a lot of the citizen testimony in electronic form. This is a very serious issue for the city. Unfortunately, we don't have these very often, but it's a pretty hard study for the counselors to catch up on this stuff and be able to understand the presentations and the consequences that we're going to look at, whatever way this comes out. I do again want to remind everybody that we are being recorded and that we are going out live. We're broadcasting. So anything everybody says, anything that we do is recorded and will be on the internet forever. So just keep that in mind as we move through this process. My goal is to be able to hear all sides of the issue through the process dictated by Coburg codes and the Oregon revised statutes. So law really dictates most everything that we're dealing with in this process. We want to hear all sides in a respectful manner. I always try and run a non-intimidating meeting, and I don't think we're going to have any problems here. We do have a lot to go through, so I'm going to move forward with the agenda review.
Okay, I'm working through a couple of technical difficulties here, so that's in helping troubleshoot. So packets went out on the 14th, and we received some additional packet items. When we received them, they were posted in batches, daily batches at the end of the day because there was such a large amount, and they were also sent to the counselors that day so they could start reading and not get 200 pages the day of the meeting. On 8/14, we received public testimony from that should have been included in the packet. That was from 6/17's Planning Commission meeting from Teresa Bishop on behalf of Alan and Peggy Wells. That was just a mistake on me. I missed it in the packets. On 8/19, we received an amended staff report. We also received the appellant's denial findings. We received a petition to the city council on 8/20. We received applicant revised TIA. Somebody can help me with that acronym.
Transportation, I think.
Transportation
Okay.
improvement
And then-
analysis or something like that.
Okay. And then on
Impact
8,
analysis.
traffic.
Transportation impact analysis.
Impact analysis, yeah.
Thank you. And then on 8/20, we also received some appellant options that was presented to council. I said these all went to the counselors the end of the day that we received them. They were also placed in the packets on our city website. And that's it.
Okay. So at this point, the next item on our agenda is citizen testimony. And this is not testimony related to the public hearing, which is not open. This is our regular agenda item for any citizens that may want to make comment. If you have comments or testimony for the public hearing, that will be called for at a later time. So is there any citizen testimony now?
There is not.
Thank you. So the council action item tonight is the appeal of the Planning Commission's decision on July 15th, 2020 to approve with conditions the Wykert or Cobert Creek subdivision SUB-01-20. Before we start the public hearing, this meeting is being recorded and streamed live on YouTube and the city website. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with the City of Cobert Code and State Law, Oregon Revised Statute 197.763. This is a de novo hearing, which means that any participant is entitled to submit new evidence or testimony not presented to the Planning Commission and may raise any concern or concern that should be addressed in a decision concerning this matter. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the approval criteria that you believe apply to this decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the city council and parties an opportunity to respond to the issue will preclude the ability to raise that issue on appeal before the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals, also known as LUBA. Failure to raise concerns relating to any proposed conditions of approval will prevent a participant from seeking damages in circuit court. The order of tonight's meeting will be the staff report. The applicants will have 15 minutes for presentation of testimony in support, and each citizen in support will be given 3 minutes to speak. Then we'll have the appellants. They'll have 15 minutes for their presentation, and additional testimony in opposition will each be given 3 minutes. Then we'll have staff response to testimony. Then the applicant's rebuttal will have 10 minutes, and then we'll close the hearing, and then council will deliberate. So at this time, which is 6:11, I will open the public hearing on the appeal of the Planning Commission's decision on July 15th, 2020 to approve with conditions the Wykert Cobert Creek subdivision SUB-01-20. Ex parte contact. Counselors are required to disclose any conflicts of interest.
Hi. So,
The expert-
Flag, do you have the option to share screen?
Somebody's on. Oh, Sammy's
Okay.
voice
No,
came
no,
up.
no, that's fine. I just didn't know if you could share your screen. That's great.
Counselors are required to disclose any conflicts of interest and ex parte contacts that they have had, whether they have any financial or other personal interest in the proposal, and if they have spoken with anybody about the Wykert subdivision outside of this hearing. Counselors can only participate if they can do so without undue bias, either for or against the application. If you do have ex parte contacts to disclose, please state whether you believe you can make an unbiased, neutral decision based solely on the evidence presented. I will start with mine, see if I can find it here. So my documents have been turned into the city recorder. On June 16th, I received an email from Kathy Ingebrigtsen, and on a subsequent phone call explained ex parte contact, encouraged her to take her concerns to the public hearing. We did discuss some procedural issues regarding ability to appeal. Ms. Ingebrigtsen chose not to discuss specifics on the proposal. On that same day, I had a discussion with Claire Smith on procedures for making statements in a hearing as a representative of the Parks and Tree Committee. Ex parte concerns were raised, and the discussion was limited to the Parks and Tree Committee's process for expressing concern for open space requirement. On June 17th, Sammy Egbert requested that I check the quality of a live stream of the Planning Commission meeting. I logged in, reported the low sound quality, and then shut off the live stream. Probably less than 2 minutes of the meeting was observed with poor sound quality. On the 18th, Martin Weisbarth emailed requesting to talk about the Planning Commission meeting held in the previous night. I explained ex parte contact issues with him, and he chose not to discuss the issue with me. August 2nd, I visited the site at the north end of Coleman Street, basically just to get a familiarization with landmarks like Muddy Creek streets and abutting homes. I have had multiple contacts with staff regarding process and procedures for the public hearing of this appeal. Details of the appeal were not discussed, but potential procedural issues were covered. I remain unbiased in this appeal. Is Counselor Alexander available?
We're working on his technical difficulties. He will be here.
Okay. Counselor Bell, do you wish to declare anything?
She needs to unmute.
You are muted.
Nancy, you're muted.
Yeah,
we go.
okay, now you've done it. Thank you. Yes, I have spoken to several people as I've been walking around town. On July 23rd, I spoke to John Marshall regarding right-of-way concerns related to North Skinner and traffic impact on Locust. Mr. Marshall is part of the planning committee, and he brought this up to me that these were some concerns that they had in the planning committee. On the 16th, I talked to Joanne Garwood. Her concern was lack of affordable housing in Coburg and hoped that the proposed development would address that. On the 28th, I was asked by or approached by Diane Malmgren regarding her concerns about traffic impact on Locust and potential for large increase with the proposed development. She stated that there's already a lot of speeding that occurs on Locust, and she was very concerned that that would increase with the development. On the 13th of August, I spoke with Molly Hansbrough. Her concerns regarding the appeal and again, the potential traffic changes of Van Dyne and Macy streets. She was not aware that those were on the table at all, but had stated that neighbors were being approached and offered $25,000 to relinquish some right-of-way on their property by one of the appellants. So property owners, she said, felt threatened and that eminent domain was mentioned at this time. And specifically, she mentioned Mr. Cast as being the person going around and offering this money. I frequently walk in the area, but I haven't actually visited the property in question, but I have noted the narrow streets, particularly North Skinner and the west end of Locust. I have noted lengthy conversations on the I Love Coburg Facebook page, but I've not responded to those and have just seen that they are there and then have moved on. I remain unbiased in my opinion of the appeal. And that's it for me.
Mayor, you're muted right now, but I would like to note that Counselor Alexander did just join the meeting and the time is 6:18 for the record. There you go, Ray.
You seem to have no control over the mute. You have taken over. Okay, we will call on Counselor Alexander. Do you wish to make a statement regarding ex parte conflict, contact or conflicts?
Marcus, I'm asking you to unmute it now. Okay, there you go.
Okay, you
You're
got me
unmuted.
now?
There you are.
No, I am not prepared to actually make a statement. I apologize.
We'll come back to you. Counselor Blaine, are you ready to make a statement?
I don't really have a statement prepared. I know I am haven't had a whole lot of contact with the public recently on this. It's just all been kind of, you know, through our system. So I have no problem staying a nonpartisan on this and going from there.
Thank you, Counselor Blaine. Counselor Alexander, are you ready yet?
No, I agree. I will stay as nonpartisan also. I've not had any contact with public at all regarding this.
That makes it easy. Okay, thank you, Counselor Alexander. Counselor Fox, would you like to make a statement?
Yeah, so I didn't think I had, but in hearing the statements, when I was going around gathering signatures, a couple on our front porch brought up about whether or not there would be lighting in the new development. And it ensued a whole separate conversation about lighting in the town. And I said I didn't know. So that's the extent of the conversation. I believe it was John, I can't read his name, John Rowell, 32791 East Mackenzie Street. But I remain unbiased. I just raised some questions.
Okay, thank you. And Counselor Lehman, would you like to make a statement?
Yes, I have no conflicts of interest nor financial interest in the subdivision. I did speak with John Marshall the day after the June 17th planning meeting. He indicated to me that several community members opposed the commission's decision and likely would appeal the decision to city council. My wife informed me that she received a text on August 18th from John Marshall about something to do with the city's comprehensive plan. I did not read the text and did not respond to the text. But on August 19th, I did talk with John Marshall briefly about the text. He indicated that the city's comprehensive plan called for streetlights for new streets. And there was also some discussion about traffic and street issues relating to Coleman and Skinner Streets with the proposed development. My wife and I frequently walk almost all the streets in Coburg on a daily basis, and we have walked down Coleman and Skinner Streets. I remain unbiased in this appeal.
Okay, Counselor McConnell.
Yes, I have had some very brief conversations. June 10th, I had a conversation with Marcia Edwards, a local resident and realtor and friend regarding the proposed development. We spoke briefly about the quality of Weikert homes and some traffic concerns that she raised. On the 12th, I received an email from Kathy Ingebretson regarding the hearing about the proposed development scheduled. It was a very brief, just an information email. On the 19th, I had a conversation with Marilyn Fleck regarding the proposal. She was basically just curious about the type of homes that Weikert builds, nothing in particular. On the 20th, I had a conversation with Cheryl Abaspour regarding the traffic patterns being considered, and she expressed concerns. On the, you can tell how much Councilor Lehman and I walk in the community. On the 27th, I had a street conversation with a woman on Locust Street who was walking her dog. I think her name is Lisa. And she had a lot of questions, and she was out front of Dale Cass's home. And they were having a pretty detailed discussion when we walked by. And I just informed them that I was a city councilor and that I had to use caution when discussing the proposed development. And I stepped away from the conversation, and they continued to discuss whatever without me. On July 2nd, I had a conversation with Kathy Ingebrigtsen and Alan Wells, and they informed me of their plan to appeal, and their concerns were basically as follows. The traffic patterns, they were concerned about an orderly transportation system. They were concerned about future connections with Macy Street and the owner of the Macy acreage. They were also concerned, they expressed some concern about our previous planner. They felt that he did not inform them and the public at the hearing regarding certain concerns that he knew about. That's all I know about that. I can remain objective regarding this decision, and I am perfectly willing and able to do that.
Thank you, Councilor McConnell, and all councilors. Now we'll take a staff report from Henry Hurley. I hope I said that right.
Correct, Mayor. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Henry, and I've stepped in to help the city of Coburg in their planning needs since their full-time planner left. I just want to say I'm happy to be helping out the city and its residents. Next slide, please. To give you a roadmap of where we'll be going tonight, first I'd like to display some things for each to know up front. I'll give a brief overview of the proposal. And then in the recent days, there's been discussion between the city, the applicant, and opponents regarding recent developments. I'll provide a brief discussion of select appeal issues that have been raised. I will present the conditions of approval and their current status. And then lastly, I will outline some options for city council action. Things to know, the 120-day rule is in play. The 120th day is August 23rd. The city has to take final action on the application by August 23rd. If it does not, the applicant has the ability to file for a writ of mandamus in circuit court. This effectively takes the application and decision out of the city's hands. The application will now be heard in circuit court. The applicant may choose to withdraw their application at any time up until a decision is made by city council. Withdrawing the application before a decision is made does not incur the 1-year waiting period. Appellants have prepared findings for denial. If city council denies, they may adopt these findings of fact in support of denial. However, if city council approves, staff will ask for an extension of the applicant to write affirmative findings of fact in support of approval to be adopted by city council. Also, the applicant is not opposed to additional conditions of approval, but their position is that the Planning Commission's decision should be affirmed. Next slide, please. This is the basic tentative map of the proposal. It is a 46-lot subdivision with 4 tracts A through D to be deeded to the city. The subdivision will consist of single-family homes and take access from North Coleman Street and North Skinner Street. The tracts can be set aside for future park and open space. However, as I'll explain later, the applicant also agrees to pay a fee as allowed for in the code to satisfy the park and open space requirement. North Skinner currently has a 30-foot right-of-way and North Coleman a 50-foot right-of-way. The area immediately north of the subdivision is outside of the urban growth boundary. After staff have learned some, next slide, please. Recent updates. Macy Street and Track D. To address east-west connectivity, the applicant is not opposed to removing Track D and extending Macy Street all the way to the boundary of the subdivision, as seen on the red arrow. In this case, the applicant would remove Lot 1 from home site consideration, and now Lot 1 would become Track D. Staff's response on this is that this is an acceptable way to further address the east-west connectivity without completely redrawing the map. Staff point out full punch through Macy Street is presently precluded by the existence of tax lots 600 and 300, The applicant cannot develop or deed land as it does not own, nor would the city be in a position to force them to do so. The new Tract D, where Lot 1 is now shown, could be used for park and open space at the city's discretion. I've provided a draft condition of approval here outlining this situation. However, this is for council consideration and has not been approved by Planning Commission. I'm not going to read it in full here. I'll address them all at the end. Next slide, please. Paving widths, North Skinner and North Coleman. The applicant has indicated they would not be opposed to paving North Skinner and North Coleman from the intersection of East Mill North to a width of 20 feet. A width of 20 feet allows for two-way traffic and a drive lane of 10 feet. Both streets have sufficient right-of-way to accommodate a paving width of 20 feet. If council decides a condition of paving width to 20 feet on Skinner and Coleman, staff want to make it as clear as possible how that will look. On Skinner, a paving width of 20 feet will require parking outside of the 20-foot clear area. The paving shall be offset to the west 3 feet to provide a 2-foot shoulder on the west side and an 8-foot shoulder on the east side. As there is 30 feet of right-of-way, there is sufficient room on the east side shoulder for an 8-foot gravel parking area. On Coleman, the existing feet, 1 minute. On Coleman, the existing right-of-way is 50 feet. There is sufficient room within the right-of-way for the 20-foot clear area and room for on-street parking on both sides, but parking of vehicles must be off pavement. Staff find it feasible these improvements can be made based off the analysis of the applicant's traffic engineer. Staff find it reasonable that the specific engineering design can be determined between the applicant's engineer and the city engineer as part of the public improvement review process. I presented 2 draft conditions of approval addressing this situation that are up for council consideration. Next slide, please. Bollards. Staff received this update on August 19th in regard to not utilizing North Skinner as a vehicular access point. Appellants have proposed to place bollards on North Skinner, effectively removing vehicular access into the subdivision via North Skinner. In conversations with the applicant, they would not be opposed to this and would place breakaway bollards on North Skinner where it currently shows North Skinner entering the subdivision. These breakaway bollards can be quickly removed to allow for emergency vehicle access in the event they need to access the subdivision. This access point would now be only open to bicycle and pedestrians. In this case, the 20-foot paving on North Skinner and North Coleman do not change. They would still be widened to 20 feet, parking on pavement prohibited, but off pavement parking permitted. The addition of bollards to North Skinner and moving vehicular traffic onto Coleman will not result in operational or safety issues beyond what is standard for this type of street and intersection, as found in the applicant's supplemental TIA dated August 20th, 2020. If council chooses this option, I have provided a draft condition for consideration. I'd also like to note the fire chief has signed off on this particular situation here. They are fine with the bollards. Next slide, please. Van Dunn. Staff received this update on August 19th in regards to dedication of 15 feet of Van Dunn. The applicant would not be opposed to dedicating 15 feet of additional right-of-way to bring up to local street standards along the eastern portion of Van Dunn, as they technically do own land adjacent to Van Dunn. Van Dunn would still terminate at the intersection with North Skinner and would also not connect west as private property lie in the way. Lots 6 to 8 would still be available for home site development. I provided a draft condition of approval, also addressing this situation for council consideration. Thank you. Appeal issue 2. Applicants correctly note that the site contains both traditional residential and traditional medium residential, TR and TMR, zoning designations. On its face, it's difficult to discern which lots are zoned which designation. By looking at the minimum lot sizes of lots 1 through 5 off to the right, it becomes evident these lots are technically zoned TMR. The zoning map does show an orange area zoned TMR intermixed with the larger yellow area for TR. The blue arrow points to the larger yellow area that is all zoned traditional residential. The red arrow points to the small orange portion that is zoned traditional medium residential. Lots 1 to 5 shown on the right range from 5,000 square feet to 5,326 square feet. The minimum lot size for traditional residential is 6,000 feet. So based on that, staff conclude these 5 lots are meant to, in the orange, are meant to be TMR zoning. Now the zoning map and the proposed map show a different alignment of the zoning. The zoning map shows an east-west orientation and the proposal shows a north-south orientation. Staff agree with the appellants in that this is rather confusing and may lead to further confusion down the road. So why the difference in the placement of the zoning? It's staff's interpretation that the orange blob was meant to be floating because of city housing needs that indicated a need for more medium density housing. The city council opted to add the needed medium density on this property. The exact location of the rectangle on the zoning map was not crucial. The amount of acreage was. The medium zoning could be applied anywhere on the site, and the applicant has decided to locate it on lots 1 through 5, comprising of approximately 0.59 acres. To that end, staff do recommend, as the appellants point out, the final map include which lots are zoned TMR as a plat note. Staff recommend an additional condition of approval. Next slide, please, Sammy. Prior to final plat approval, final plat shall have a plat note indicating which lots are zoned traditional medium residential. Next slide, Sammy. Appeal Statement 9. The appellants contend that the park and recreation provision requires demonstration that land cannot be dedicated for park and recreation purposes. This is not how staff understands this provision. Staff believe an applicant may choose to pay the park fees instead of providing the parks and open space. To go further, the applicant is also proposing to deed tracts of land to the city. To use these 4 tracts of land, the use of these 4 tracts can be determined by the city. Rather than reading this code in the strictest sense, City Council should simply contemplate if the applicant has met the intent of this provision. Staff finds they have by simply agreeing to pay the required fee. Now, to make sure the fee is paid, staff do recommend a condition of approval. Next slide, please. Appeal Statement 11. Appellants state the subdivision does not contribute to the orderly development of the city's transportation system. To access the subdivision is substandard. The access to the subdivision is substandard, and the applicant's TIA stated both Skinner and Coleman Streets are 14 to 16 feet in width, which contributed to erroneous conclusions. As Planning Commission's decision removed on-street parking on Skinner and Coleman, the TIA was written before this fact and concluded that existing widths are 12 feet and can safely operate and efficiently operate as long as there is opportunity for vehicles to pull over. Also, appellants contend the TIA did not account for pedestrians sharing the road with motor vehicles, and the Planning Commission's decision to impose conditions eliminated on-street parking. The response: staff believe the amended TIA is still adequate and has been revised to address the issues raised by the appellants, as well takes into consideration the impacts of bollards on North Skinner and the impacts of the paving of 20 feet on Skinner and Coleman. The TIA concludes that 20-foot paving can be done and off-pavement parking can be accommodated. Further, if council makes Skinner into a bike ped access only, the use of Coleman for singular vehicle access will not result in operational or safety issues beyond what is standard for this type of street and intersection. Next slide, please. Appeal Statement 12. Appellants argue the subdivision adversely affects the access and future development of underdeveloped large lots immediately to the south of the subdivision. However, if East Dunn were extended east to Coleman, it would eliminate this adverse effect. The lots are 7,000, 6,903, 7,101, and 7,200. Also, the subdivision creates a significant safety concern for residents living south of the new development on narrow streets that are not designed or improved for additional traffic. These streets include North Skinner, East Locust, and Coleman. And the final order of Planning Commission did not address subsection BB, and the code provision contained a Scrivener's error, so the provision was largely ignored. Staff's response: regarding the adverse impact to the access and future development of underdeveloped large lots to the south. These lots are already developed. The code language uses development of property, not redevelopment. Further, staff believe a proposal does not have to reconsider the redevelopment of every property. Staff agree with the scrivener's error that it exists and should be corrected. Further, staff agree the findings made for subsection AA and BB are unclear or absent. Staff believe council has the ability to make findings now for this section. The draft recommended findings were entered into the record and placed before council as included in the amended staff report dated August 19th on pages 5 to 8. Next slide, please. I now will go into the conditions of approval. The conditions of approval in yellow are what were authorized by Planning Commission. To reiterate the applicant's position, their position is that Planning Commission's decision should be affirmed and the conditions in yellow should be applied. I will read all the conditions of approval. Condition 1, prior to final plat approval, the applicant shall obtain partition approval at the city boundary from Lane County. Condition 2, the design of the public streets and city utility infrastructure will be reviewed separately under a public review process and is subject to modifications as determined through that process. Connection points, design details, and other detailed criteria will be subject to public standards and applicable codes. Condition 3, the proposed site plan shall be adjusted to accommodate line of sight for stopping site distance within the proposed public right-of-way by increasing the length of 2 curves or permanent no-build easements shall be placed on the final plat to prohibit building within the site distance areas. Next slide, please. Condition 4, as part of the public improvement process, the applicant shall improve the off-site roadway access points to a minimum of 2 vehicle access lanes or at least 2 fire access lanes standards and requirements. Improvements shall include but be limited to pavement widening, pavement on-street parking restrictions. These could be worded a little better from Planning Commission. Condition 5, any street improvement as part of the new subdivision or adjacent street connection improvement shall be a minimum of 20 feet unobstructed with 16 feet travel surface and 13 feet 6 inches vertical clearance. Now, the conditions you see in red are conditions found by staff during their review of the proposal. Condition 6, prior to final plat approval, final plat shall have a plat note indicating which lots are zoned traditional medium residential. Condition 7, reserve strips at the 3 northern ends within the subdivision on North Skinner, North Emerald, and Coleman Street shall be shown on the final plat. The applicant shall dedicate the area of the reserve strips to the city of Coburg for this purpose. Condition 8, prior to final plat approval of the subdivision, the applicant shall record and receive final plat approval of the partition identified as city file name and number PA0120 Weichert partition. Construction activities such as earth moving and rearranging can occur as long as they aren't associated with building a structure. Condition 9, a 10-foot wide planting screen easement shall be placed along the south property lines of lots 6, 7, and 8, which abut East Van Dunn. Prior to final plat approval, presence of planting screen easement shall be included on the final plat. There is recognition in this condition that the south lot lines of lots 6, 7, and 8 will change due to the additional dedication of right-of-way along East Van Dunn at the applicant's expense. Condition 10, subdivider shall, in addition to setting aside land, pay into a public land acquisition fund a sum of money equal to 1% of the gross sale price of each lot in the subdivision, which sum of money shall be paid at the time each lot is developed or sold, whichever comes first. This condition shall take the form of a written agreement between the city and the applicant. Now, the conditions you see in blue are conditions that the applicant is not opposed to. But as I said earlier, the applicant's position is that the conditions in yellow should be affirmed. Condition 11, prior to final plat approval, applicant shall extend and improve Macy Street within the subdivision up to full local street standards as seen in table 8, Coburg Street Standards, to the western boundary of the subdivision through what is known as Tract D, on the June 9th, 2020 tentative plan map. Reserved streets or street stubs shall be placed at the terminus to allow for future full extension of Macy Street. The control and disposal of the land comprising of the land shall be placed within the jurisdiction of the city. Lot 1, as seen on the June 9th, 2020 tentative plan map, shall be shown as Track D and be deeded to the city. The extension of Macy Street to the western boundary of the subdivision and the swap of Track D and Lot 1 shall be shown on the final plat map. Engineering detail plans shall be submitted and reviewed as part of the public improvement review process by the city engineer. Next slide, please. Condition 12, North Coleman. Applicant shall pave to a width of 20 feet from the intersection of East Mill Street north along North Coleman Street up to the point where North Coleman enters the subdivision. No parking on pavement signs shall be posted on North Coleman. Off pavement parking of vehicles is permitted. Applicant shall submit plans for review by the city engineer as part of the public improvement review process prior to the commencement of paving, as discussed in this condition. 13, North Skinner. Applicant shall pave to a width of 20 feet from the intersection of East Mill Street north along North Skinner, past the intersection of East Van Dunn, and up to the point where North Skinner enters the subdivision. The paving shall be offset to the west side 3 feet to provide for a 2-foot shoulder on the west and an 8-foot shoulder on the east. As there is 30 feet of right-of-way, there is sufficient room on the east side shoulder for an 8-foot gravel parking area. No parking on pavement signs shall be posted on North Skinner. Off-pavement parking of vehicles is permitted. Next slide, please. 14. Prior to final plat approval, final map shall show evidence of bollards placed across the right-of-way at the point where North Skinner enters the subdivision. Bollards shall be able to break away in such a manner that emergency access and vehicles can easily obtain access. The extension of North Skinner into the subdivision will be closed to vehicular traffic and open to bicycle and pedestrian traffic. Specific engineering, placement, and design plans will be reviewed as part of the public improvement review process by the city engineer. Next slide, please. 15, prior to final plat approval, applicant shall dedicate 15 feet of right-of-way along the eastern portion of East Van Dunn that is immediately adjacent to the rear lot lines of lots 6, 7, and 8. The dedication of 15 feet will bring East Van Dunn up to right-of-way width of 45 feet. Applicant owns the land associated with the rear lot lines of 6, 7, and 8 as seen on the tentative plan map dated June 9, 2020. The improvements of East Van Dunn shall be brought up to local street standards consistent with Table 8, Coburg Street Standards. Specific engineering plans for roadway improvements to be reviewed by the city engineer as part of the public improvement review process. Next slide. That brings me to the last slide, city council options. City council can close the hearing and the record and enter into deliberations tonight and make a decision. City council can make a motion to affirm the planning commission decision as is. City council can make a motion to approve the application based on additional conditions presented tonight and adopted affirmative findings of fact in support of approval at their next meeting. Or city council can make a motion to deny the application tonight based on findings of fact as presented and written by the appellants. Staff believe the application can be approved subject to revised findings as determined by council. At a minimum, staff believe the staff recommended conditions should be applied. These conditions do not deal much with street design, just review of our proposal. That is all.
At this time, we'll have Sammy read the list of written testimony received.
So this is testimony that was received after packets were done. Was also batched daily, posted on the website and sent to counselors. So on 8/18, we received a letter in support from A.D. Smith, Keller Williams Realty. On 8/19, we received several letters of support from Jim and Molly Hansborough, Peter Chapin, Christopher Olm, Ray Cope, and then we had 2 unknown. They were signed, just ineligible, or couldn't read it. We received a letter of opposition from the Park and Tree Committee. On 8/20, so today, we received support letters from Don Barr at Comfort Flow Heating, Midge Hoffman, John Hoffman, Frank and Tara Fetzko. We received letters of opposition from James and Sandra Marr. They turned in 2 separate letters. One from Thomas Bartlett, one from Kristen Bartlett, one from Briegel family. And then we didn't receive a letter, it should have been added below, but received a printout of the I Love Coburg Facebook conversation and post, so that went on the record as well.
Sammy, I got 4. I have 4 from you today, but the last couple I don't see.
I don't have those last 2 either.
I'm sorry, the Bartletts.
And Midge Hoffman.
Okay. I will send those to you right now.
Any other concerns or questions?
Are you kidding?
You'll have a chance regarding the staff report. I do want to, I missed a statement here, but I do want to state that if you have a clarification, you need a clarification, you can ask a question during the presentation, but we do not want to get into dialogue or discussion over a point. Just ask for the clarification and then we move on. At this point, I will now be calling. Go ahead.
Mayor?
Yes.
I need a clarification on the staff report where they talk about adding the bollards to
Sure.
Skinner. Can I have some clarification on that?
Sammy, could you go back to that slide, please? It's 7.
And the clarification I need is, does that just give one egress and ingress into the development for traffic? I'm confused on that now.
Sure. So I'll just remind you, so this is not, it's not part of the actual proposal. It's something that council can consider. It's not been, it was not
I understand that. Yes, I
Okay.
do understand that.
So
Yeah.
the bollards on North Skinner, yes, it would remove car traffic going into the subdivision via North Skinner. It would only be open to bicycles and pedestrians. All the access, the vehicles would go through Coleman. That is correct. However, in the event the fire department needs to get in there, they can break away those bollards and get in through North Skinner. And that has been approved, or that has been found to be satisfactory from the fire chief.
And the fact that there's only one egress and ingress for vehicular traffic is also approved by the fire marshal?
Yes.
Because I understood that we needed 2. It's just a clarification for me.
So that has changed.
Okay.
I did share this proposal with the fire chief, and he said there are no problems.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions of clarification from support staff?
Well, I'm
I
not
have
support
one.
staff, but could you guys explain what a bollard is?
Yeah, my limited knowledge. It's like a peg that would be placed in the middle of like a bike path, and it would prevent a car from getting on there. but you could easily walk by it or ride your bike by it. But if needed in an emergency situation, they could quickly be removed by the fire department. Maybe think of the Eugene Bike Path. There's construction, like little metal posts at the end. Those are bollards to prevent cars from driving on there.
Got it.
They're basically a steel post for
The steel
protection.
post. Yeah, there you go. That's what I was looking for.
And they bollards also like protect like gas meters and things like that. They're a common use for protecting or creating a open barrier.
I have a
Can I-
question.
Counselor Fox.
So based on Councilor McConnell's question about only one point of access, I thought the East Mackenzie was connecting it. That's not the case?
I'm not aware of any vehicle access via East Mackenzie,
Okay.
at least leading into the subdivision.
So I have one more question then.
Counselor McConnell.
The improvement to Van Dyne, what is the purpose of that? Given that Van Dyne, doesn't it end in a property that has been vacated?
Sure.
And can
Tammy,
never-
could you go to slide 8? So the dedication of Van Dyne is something that has been worked out behind the scenes a little bit between the applicant and opponents. And it's also gets at a requirement for improving land that is adjacent to the subdivision. And that's not the case in all the streets adjacent to the subdivision. But as I said, the applicant technically does own land adjacent to East Van Dyne. So it has the possibility to be improved up to 45 feet of right of way.
But it would not go through to a connector of any sort.
That's correct. The
Okay.
improvement of East Van Dyne would, it would still terminate at Skinner, and it would not go all the way through to the other side of West Van Dyne because there's private property in the way.
Yeah, right.
Other questions?
I just, one more.
Counselor Fox.
And what is the logic for closing off the Mackenzie access, not the Mackenzie, for the Skinner access?
I mean, to limit vehicle traffic on North Skinner, and also allow for pedestrian and bike access.
Any other questions from counselors? Counselor McConnell.
Mine isn't a question, but I think clarification that one of the concerns from the appellants is traffic coming into the park area from Skinner onto Locust. And I think that may be why they addressed that. I may be wrong, but that looks like.
We'll probably gain more clarity on that as we go with the other testimony. Okay, any other clarification questions?
One more.
Counselor Fox, one more.
North Coleman, was there any traffic pattern analysis about the amount of traffic that would come and go if there's only one point of access?
Yes. Staff asked that of the applicant this morning to have their traffic engineer submit an amended TIA, and they did. And the conclusion of the traffic engineer is that that all the access going to North Coleman, it's still efficient and safe and can operate as it's supposed to. And I did send that to Sammy this afternoon, and Sammy, you might want to forward that to them if they want to look at it, if you haven't already.
That was forwarded to him this afternoon in their 8:20 packet, and I did confirm that both Patty McConnell, both of those written testimonies are included in that email as well,
Okay. thank
under
you.
the PDF written testimony.
And I'll add, I mean, I'm not certain, but I believe the applicant's traffic engineer is on tonight, and she may be available to answer more specific questions regarding that during their presentation.
Okay. Any other questions for clarification of the staff report? Moving on. I will now be calling for the applicant's testimony. We will start with the applicant's presentation, allowing 15 minutes, followed by public testimony in support, allowing 3 minutes each. Is there any objection to this order? Hearing none, we're going to ask for the applicant presentation. We're not sure who is doing that, so let's find that out and move on.
Hello, my name is Bruce Weichert. I'm the applicant, and I'll be speaking for ourselves, although we also have Tony Favreau here and Derek Westover if you have any questions. And I'll try to be extremely brief, and but afterwards, if there's other questions, Tony, the engineer, will be more knowledgeable for some very technical issues, I believe. So anyways, my name is Bruce Weichert. Like I said, I'll try to be extremely brief. I know this is very difficult in these COVID times and on a Zoom meeting. But I too wanted to thank the staff of the city of Cobourg and Henry, who has now been dumped into the middle of this as well. I just think they've done an outstanding job under very difficult circumstances, and a lot of information that's been filed on all of the city staff. For Bruce Weichert Custom Homes, we've been building homes in the Lane County area for I think probably at least 25 years, maybe longer. You can tell by my lack of hair that it's been quite a while, I guess, that we've been building homes. I think that over that period of time, we've, don't mind if I say, I think that we have developed an excellent reputation for building quality homes in communities that we build. We don't build mega mansion homes. That's just not what we do. We try to build homes that appeal to families. We pay a lot of attention to our floor plans. We build a lot of single level floor plans. And we try to be very, very careful in our thoughts about how they're laid out and quality and the value, I guess, that's kind of been our motto for years. We've been working very closely with the city and the staff, the city of Cobourg, for close to 1 year now. We've met and relied upon advice from the city planner, the city engineer, the fire chief, the police chief, public works director, and the Parks Committee. We met with them as well, and we believe we've satisfied all their concerns, and really everything that was raised, I think, has been addressed to their satisfaction, which is why the recent Planning Commission had approved it, and why the Planning Director had recommended approval as well. We've also complied with every single code item that was required. The city of Cobourg has a brand new planning code, which is quite extensive. A lot of requirements. And I believe we've actually found a way with Tony's help and working with the city staff to answer all of the concerns that are raised in the code. And we've also provided, as Henry mentioned earlier, a traffic analysis that shows the impact of the traffic in the area, and then an updated traffic proposal just very recently to also address any new concerns. We're also offering to make improvements off-site. We're offering to pave the extra widths along Coleman and Skinner to improve the road situations at those two locations. We've also offered to pay the 1% park fee, which is kind of an option. We can either donate land, or the code provides paying, instead of donating land, we can provide a park fee. We've actually offered to do both. We're going to offer tracks A through D. You have those on your map. that would be for park use. Plus we will pay the 1% park fee if I thought the Parks Committee was actually happy. We'll hear maybe from them later, but in any event, that's the purpose of paying the park fee as an alternative. That if the parkland was deemed not satisfactory or not large enough or something, or not in a square enough configuration, which is very difficult to do and comply with all of the other code requirements for density, block length, road length, lot
We lost him.
size,
We lost
minimum
him.
size, maximum size, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's way. Oh, did you lose me? Oh, can you hear me?
You blank out for about 10 seconds.
Yeah. You're on.
Oh, okay. All right. Am I back?
You are back.
Okay. Thank you. Basically, I'll just start again. The Planning Commission has reviewed this subdivision extensively with additional extensions of time that were granted that allowed for further submittals by the citizens. And the Planning Commission, as you know, approved the application as compliant with all code requirements. Now that the planning decision has been appealed, a new planning department, i.e. Henry and his staff, has again reviewed de novo every single aspect of the application. Again, the new independent review by the new planning director has determined with a couple of new conditions.
I lost you again.
On points, these two new conditions that are acceptable to us. As Henry has pointed out.
I can't hear him.
That involve,
Yeah, we got to pause it.
okay.
Your connection is going in and out.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
We're losing about 10 seconds every minute. You seem to be stalling on.
Okay. Not sure what's happening.
I can fix something. I'm gonna have to put in a cord all the way out here.
Okay. You can pause this for 1 minute. Tony is going to try some technical improvements here.
All part of the fun of doing a technology meeting.
Yeah, gosh, this is so awkward for everyone. Sorry. Problems. Not sure what's going on.
Yeah, it's like a freeze frame experience.
Oh gosh, should I try to continue? Can you hear me or now or?
Well, you're stuttering. It's hard to understand.
Maybe that's just me. No.
I think too, part of the problem might be we're hearing some backdraft. Do you have your phone somewhere close? We're hearing something else that might be interfering.
It's not on, but I can certainly.
Okay.
I can turn it off maybe if that would help.
No, I think it's a connection thing.
We'll just get rid of those phones if that's doing anything.
It's funny because it started out so fluid.
That? We're going to try a hard connection here. Is that any better?
Yes.
It is.
Oh,
Yes.
wonderful. Okay. All right. I'll just continue on where I left off.
Nope.
Nope, you froze up again.
I think you don't want to have two devices out there. So if someone else just brought a laptop, I would turn that off and turn your phone off. Because a lot of times that's what happens with the interference.
Oh, maybe there's something else on.
The other thing we could do is have you call in and give your presentation.
I think he was sounding okay when there weren't other devices out there. For that minute when he turned his phone off and that other laptop hadn't arrived.
So can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I've nearly wrapped up anyways, folks. Nothing really astounding to say. Anyways, I really just wanted to conclude, if you can hear me all, that we really feel we've complied with all the code requirements now. Perhaps the good news, if it will, just over the last few days, we've been looking with the appellants trying to address concerns that they have. And we believe we've reached an agreement with the appellants that satisfies their primary concerns. And they've suggested 3 new conditions of approval that Henry has described to you that satisfies their major concerns. If the City Council approves these new conditions, we would not object to those. If the City Council were to approve the subdivision with those new conditions this evening, then we have no objection to that. Finally, I just wanted to say that during these very difficult COVID times, I know we can provide many jobs to many families in all of our communities. We have a long, we work with all local contractors, all local suppliers. We're not an out-of-town builder. We'll be supplying local jobs into many businesses and workmen that live in all of our communities, which I think is actually very important, especially nowadays where job security is very important. We can also provide, I believe, a long-lasting financial benefit to local businesses over and increase local tax base will benefit all the residents in the city of Cobourg. I would therefore respectfully ask that the City Council reaffirm Planning Commission decision with the conditions this evening. And thank you very, very much for your time. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Weicker.
Thank you.
Tammy, we have a list of testimony for support of the applicant.
Yes, we do. And I think, Mayor, if you want to just go ahead and call, if they're on, I've kind of done a little bit of a roll call. It doesn't look like everybody's here. So Corey Hatfield is, if he wants to start it off. Mayor has given 3 minutes to, and when you start, will you please give your name and address for the record? And don't forget to unmute yourself.
Got it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Corey Hatfield. I live on 28168 Macbeth Road. I got probably a little bit, people that aren't familiar with me in Cobourg. I don't actually live in Cobourg. I have done a development in Cobourg. I did the Hatfield Estates. So I do know that it is possible to do a nice development in Cobourg that benefits the town, that benefits everybody there, the businesses and everything. I actually am the one that owned the property, that sold the property to Mr. Weicker. So I kind of got skin in the game on all around. I'm also own a Emerald Door and Glass. So Weicker is a very large customer of mine. And I employ 25 people, and he helps with obviously the business. You know, he builds a lot of really nice homes, high quality home. So I kind of have my hands in everything. I kind of did a development in Cobourg. Weicker's a customer of mine, and he's also a good friend of mine. And he purchased the subdivision from me, the dirt from me. So that being said, I think that the city of Cobourg, if they, you know, they can get this approved, he's a great guy to work with, great company to work with, and they build a very nice home. And I would strongly suggest that we get through this and give the guys a shot to do what they do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hatfield. Mitch Hoffman.
Midge is here. Let me get down.
You have to unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes, Midge, go ahead.
Okay, I'm on John's computer. I guess the main thing, I wrote a lot of things in my letter, but the main thing I want to make note of is that if a development is approved and then overturned or changed, I think that opens up a lot of strange things happening to the development process. I don't think it really looks good for how we do things in Coburg. And I also think the staff report was fine. I thought everything was right on. And I just don't think to overturn it now is a good idea for our city. So thank you.
Thank you, Midge. And now John Hoffman.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks, Ray. So my name is, for the record, John Hoffman. I live at 91239 North Harrison. Midge and I own TL 300, which is the tax lot that includes 30 feet of what would be Macy Street if it were to continue. So, you know, Ray, you know me, over the years, I'm not a big proponent of just, you know, homes going up all over the place. I revere the land. However, the growth that I see happening to Coburg is like just a huge wave hitting the sand, and there's not a lot I can do about it. So having said all that, I believe that this subdivision is in the best interest of Coburg. Obviously, I don't necessarily want to see Macy Street in my lifetime get connected to the new subdivision. However, be that as it may, I'm in favor of this subdivision going through. I've read the staff report quite extensively, at least the part of it that refers to the appellants and how staff rebutted all their concerns. So just to be on record, I am for this new subdivision, and I think it will only improve Coburg. Thanks, Ray. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John and Midge. Okay. Right script here. Okay, the Hoffmans, I can hear them talking in the background, so be aware. Okay, I will now be calling for testimony from the opposition. We will start with the appellant's presentation, allowing 15 minutes, followed by public testimony in opposition, allowing 3 minutes each. Is there any objection to this order? Hearing none, appellant's presentation, 15 minutes. We know who's presenting.
I don't know for sure, Ray. I would assume that it's going to be Teresa.
There's somebody waving a hand or something.
Hi, good evening. Our appellants will start with Kathy.
Thank you.
Kathy Engelbretson, I don't even show you listed on here to unmute you.
Hello.
There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just going to give the 3-minute testimony. Teresa was going to do our 15-minute. Is that okay, or is it okay to do it in that order?
Right, that would be your call. We had it to set up that Teresa was going to give the presentation and then the 3-minute comment.
As long as, Kathy, as long as you're just going to do your 3-minute presentation, if that's the order you guys had talked about, that would work for you. I'm fine with your 3-minute presentation and then the 15 minutes for the opposition presentation.
Okay, thank you. I will start here. I'm just going to, well, before I start, I'm just going to set a timer so I know how much, how fast I have to talk. Thank you, everyone. I want to make clear I respect the applicant and the applicant's team. I have no reason to believe they're not acting with integrity. My objections are not with the applicant nor to the housing being built on this parcel. I'm simply advocating for modifications to the site plan that will make the street network work better for Coburg in the long run. Also, this is not meant to be a criticism of the Planning Commission or staff. What brought us here? The process followed by the Planning Commission at the advice of the former planning staff failed to address more than a dozen apparent conflicts with the development code as was laid out in our technical arguments. I'm not going to repeat that, very long. And then they did not properly grant exceptions or variances according to the normal way of doing that. So it gave the impression of sweeping issues under the rug. A little background. We have the secret recipe. We just need to follow it here in Coburg. People love it here. Neighbors know one another. People walk through the quiet streets like it's one big path system. And it isn't accidental. It will slip through our fingers if we don't be careful to protect it. So what does Coburg have that's so special? When it comes to transportation, the historic residential core of Coburg has a traditional street grid, short, narrow blocks with many intersections making a web-like network. This disperses traffic very evenly instead of bottlenecking it. With a robust network of small streets, residents love to walk and ride bikes around town. This leads to meeting neighbors, eyes on the street for safety, and better physical and mental health. If we don't ensure Coburg's unique characteristics are carried forward in new developments, including zooming out and carefully considering the street network, we will lose these special qualities forever. Unlike 2 other subdivisions recently completed in Coburg, which have access to very busy through streets, this subdivision can only be accessed from very narrow, very low traffic residential streets running deep into the historic core of Coburg. Residents are particularly concerned about pedestrian safety, especially as traffic is planned to funnel from North Skinner onto East Locust and right past Norma Pfeiffer Park. The Planning Commission conditions of approval for improvements to the proposed street connections, Coleman and Skinner, were an afterthought. There was almost no discussion as to their presumed effectiveness in solving any issue, and the conditions seemed to eliminate parking as well. The design approved by the Planning Commission eliminated a potential relief connection to the existing Macy Street to the west of the subdivision by placing a track D in the way, instead of putting a street there, as was called for in Coburg's adopted transportation system plan. This was short-sighted in my opinion, but very simple to fix. What if the urban growth boundary expands north? This is something else we have to think about. Are we to settle for all new traffic from the countless new homes just to funnel down Skinner and Locust and Coleman, compounding problems? Given some of the past decisions with regard to right-of-way in this part of town, it is a little hard to have faith the city will ever provide east-west connections to alleviate the prospective deluge of traffic moving south through historic Coburg residential core and the primary public park area at Norma Pfeiffer Park. So the Planning Commission should have proposed modifications to the site plan to leave open options for additional street connections like Macy. They should have discussed the 30-foot right-of-way on Skinner, much narrower than most, raising its own set of problems, and should have put more thought into the best way to improve the connecting streets so the cities isn't stuck making costly changes down the road. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy. Are we set up for the 15-minute presentation from opposition now?
Yes. My name is Teresa Bischow, and I will start by thanking you for holding this public hearing tonight. We believe we've provided ample evidence as to why the subdivision does not comply with the city code or the comprehensive plan. And as Kathy touched upon a few of those, Realizing the time constraint you're under, we did provide for your consideration on dated August 20th, findings to deny the subdivision. I just want to touch upon a couple of those, and then I want to focus our presentation on the conceptual options for how to address issues that we distributed earlier today. For example, the tentative subdivision does not provide orderly development. In particular, the local street system is not being enhanced. We've also flagged that whenever existing streets are adjacent to the subdivision, to a proposed subdivision, the additional right-of-way and improvements need to occur at that time. We do remain concerned with the procedures that were followed at the Planning Commission level. I won't go into depth, but that is a concern we had. With regard to the method of dealing with the floating zone, we do support the staff recommended condition of approval number 6 to indicate on the final plat the lots that are zoned traditional medium residential. But we do point out there's nothing in your code allowing the subdivision process to replace the zone change procedure. That's just not an avenue available to the applicant. Also, with regard to the condition related to the pending partition, the code requires a tentative subdivision plan to include all contiguous property under the same ownership, and this did not occur. Only the land within the city limit was included. With regard to conditions related to North Skinner and North Coleman, I do want to point out that the code section reads, improvements to city streets shall conform to the street standards. It doesn't say may conform or to the extent possible conform. And it doesn't say improvements just to new city streets. It says when you're doing an improvement to a city street, it shall conform to the standards. And for both North Coleman and North Skinner, that's not being proposed with any of the conditions of approval. And we've included the local adopted street standards, and the math just doesn't line up. You can't fit within a 30-foot right-of-way, 20 feet, the 2 travel lanes, and an 8-foot parking area, and do something other than providing for the car. The Coburg streets are designed to provide also for people and the environment, which is why the local street standards require a soft shoulder of at least 3 feet and a bioswale or planter for trees of at least 4 feet. So essentially what's being conditioned is a road widening, not bringing the streets up to local standards. I do now want to see if Sammy can bring option A up on the screen.
We are getting it for you. Miss Megan is doing it for us. Thanks, Megan.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. So what we were believing was that a graphic would illustrate our concerns and why this subdivision needs to be denied and resubmitted. Option A, again, this isn't completely vetted. I just want to touch on what we were trying to illustrate. So with option A, Macy Street extends to Coleman. That's in your adopted transportation plan. That occurs before the subdivision is constructed. Whoops. Okay, thank you. Van Dyne extends to Sarah, and we've realigned it in this option so that North Skinner is narrowed. It's not a fully improved public street. It is a bike and pedestrian and emergency access only. With regard to the number 4, the number of street stubs going to land outside the urban growth boundary and outside the city limits is 2. And to account for Van Dyne not going through and the hardship it creates for what are parcels that could achieve greater development. Number 6 or number 5 points to a private access easement. And then Coleman, the improvements to Mill Street are to fully comply with local street standards, including not only the 20-foot wide pavement, but also areas for parking. So now that's the key themes with this option. If we could go to the next one, option B, thank you. With this one, Macy stays the same, but you take a different approach with Van Dyne. You decide it's not the developer's burden, and you only have a future bike ped connection. And again, you still keep Macy. And with this one, let's offset Coleman as it goes north. So it's not a straight shot. So the new number 4, north of Macy on the east side is jogged just slightly to discourage and help disperse the traffic. The improvements to Coleman are the same with option B. Then with option C, this one probably comes the closest to code compliance. The developer is only responsible to extend Macy Street within the boundary of the subdivision, as shown there. East Van Dyne, again, the developer is only responsible adjacent to the tract itself, but that road is widened and fully improved to local street standards, just for lots 6, 7, and 8. Number 3 is the same. Skinner's is narrowed. It does not have the right-of-way width to be able to be brought up to local street standards. Number 5, we've talked about. Number 6 is where the north-south street is aligned better so that as it goes forward, if the city decides to expand the urban growth boundary in this area, you don't create another triangular situation as it goes north. You have a good distance from North Harrison. And then with this one, Coleman is improved to full street standards. We've included multiple times the local street standards. It's exhibit D in our latest packet to you. It has the parking area on the local street actually being paved. There's no signage. You know, as a driver, as a motorist, that you park wherever there's pavement, and then you have a soft shoulder and a travel lane. And I just want to say the staff asserting that parking is allowed in front yards is not true. The code prohibits parking in front yards in the low density residential area unless they're on a driveway. If any of these homeowners have driveways leading to a garage, they can't put another motor vehicle in their front yard. That would create a second driveway, which the code prohibits. So parking needs to be in the public right of way. And I think I forgot to do my time. How much time do I have still? Anybody know?
Let me look here.
Okay.
Looks like you are at 8 minutes.
Okay. I will say in general, there were a lot of missteps with how this application was reviewed when it came in, and it's unfortunate where we are today. We tried to illustrate alternatives. We're not against housing. We support residential development in the city of Coburg. It's the timing and the access and circulation being provided that are the biggest issues. Since I have just a couple more minutes, I'll also share that this is the first subdivision to come in under your new code. And it's important that you actually look at the code section and realize you're setting a precedent for future subdividers. If a relatively flat 10-acre site, if a developer can simply state they don't have any land available for parks and recreation, you're allowing them to opt out by paying the fee. And the fee may sound like a lot until you realize you don't have control over when and how much the lots sell for. Also, in this case, almost all of the tracts that are being deeded to the city will be used for stormwater drainage. So they're really not achieving that end goal. Well, I will conclude with one more comment, and that is the subdivision did include street profiles for street improvements done within the subdivision. We have not received any street sections for Coleman, the existing street improvements being proposed. And so that's just been challenging. That will conclude my comments, and I would like to see if Alan Wells could use our remaining time. And thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Teresa.
I already unmuted.
Okay.
And Alan Wells, according to my time, there was 3 minutes left. So if you're part of the presentation, you can continue that 3 minutes.
Oh.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I actually, between Kathy and Teresa, I think they've covered everything that was on my list of what I wanted to cover. I mean, what it really boils down to from our standpoint is access, and having access to this subdivision from only two points of access is insufficient in our opinion. And I, from a very simple way of comparing this, and I'm glad Corey Hatfield had a chance to speak, because in Hatfield Estates, which was recently built, they have 5 accesses, 5 complete, fully developed accesses where the streets were developed to city standards. In Hayden Estates, the most recent subdivision here in town, they have 3 fully developed accesses. And yet the proposal that is on the table now has 2, both of which, well, one of which at least on Skinner Street is insufficient in size. So while we appreciate Bruce Weicker, we think he would be an excellent developer. We think he builds very nice homes and he'd fit right in to the community. But access to this subdivision is critical, because as it stands now, the access on Skinner Street, if it's allowed to go, at least half, if not more, of the traffic from this new subdivision will come down Skinner Street, take a right onto Locust Street, and will be impacting the north end of our Central Park. And in our opinion, that makes a very unsafe situation where you've got cars and pedestrians and bicyclists competing with each other. It's already an issue now. I think all of us are aware of that. Be exacerbated 10 times as much if this new subdivision was allowed to have access on Skinner Street. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Okay, well, we're declaring that as the end of the opposition testimony, the 15-minute time span. And
do I get to speak?
I'm trying to get my script here.
Sammy, do I get it?
That's fine. So we've done Kathy Engelbretson, Alan Wells, Peggy, you're next.
Thank you. I found my sheet of paper now. Peggy Wells.
Hi, you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm actually reading a letter from John Thiel on behalf of his wife, Katie Thiel. And Katie was the planning commissioner right here in Coburg for 15 years. And his letter says, "It is breaking my heart to see this. I spent 15 years on the planning commission from 1998 to 2013. We worked so hard to set up a code that would protect the quality of life of our residents and protect the character of our neighborhoods from the onslaught of development, which was certain to follow the installation of a sewer. One thought guided my decisions. Could I accept the changes to my property that a proposed development would create if I lived on one of the impacted properties? The timeline and needs of a developer, especially a large one who does not live in Coburg, should always be subservient to the needs of the residents. We chose to share a beautiful community with them on our terms. The passing financial interests of an investment should never be given more weight than the impact to the lives of the people who live in these neighborhoods. Go walk these streets, stand in these front yards, imagine the changes. Consider what people will have to live with. Skinner Street has always been identified as problematic for future development. A blasé approach to code enforcement is unacceptable. This neighborhood deserves the intentional, creative, careful, and community-involved crafting of land use planning that characterized the visioning charrettes of the 20-aughts. I'm not sure what that means, but that's how it's said. The built environment is very much permanent. This decision will affect the city for 50+ years. Please, please be patient and earnest as you make these decisions. The citizens of Coburg are depending on you to be the guardians of their future. Katie Thiel.
Thank you, Peggy. The next speaker will be Annalee Fuentes. And please remember to give your address when you come on.
Anna Lee, are you here? I have one person who's joining us with a 503 that I don't have a name on.
My name's up there. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. I won't speak long, but I did want to thank the person who wrote the letter that was just read by Wells. I think it's really important to point out that a lot of people who are very pro this, I'm trying to find my words here. They're looking for this to go through and be approved, the subdivision. Many of them that stand to gain are actually people who do not live in town. And I can't agree more with the fact that this should be something that it concerns the citizens of Coburg. We live here. There's a large group of us that are very, very concerned. I live on the corner of Diamond on the front, Skinner on the north side. I mean, not Skinner, I'm sorry, Locust on the north side, and then South Skinner. So I have 3 edges of the property here that will be affected by this subdivision and the current proposal for traffic. My husband and I have lived here for 20 years. The other neighbor that I'm speaking for, Chris Serbaugh, has lived here for probably 30. And we've seen the town change a lot, especially with the demographics. There's been a lot of young people have moved in. Traffic is getting heavier and has gotten faster. And I don't have, and in fact, no one that I've spoke to has a problem with the subdivision itself. The main problem is just the dangers that will be imposed upon the neighborhood, the park, the children, the dogs. I mean, it's just going to be a horrible, horrible mess. You know, and in terms of enlarging these streets, I would take Henry, and I'm speaking with you as well as others. You might want to really see if it's a viable proposal to enlarge or to widen North Skinner to 20 feet. We do live on that street, and we do have not an outbuilding, a studio and a garage that might prohibit that proposal. I think it's the totally wrong thing to do for our town to have that. You know, people are going to be coming down from north and hanging a right onto Coburg. That intersection is already bad. I can't get out to go to the store if I want to go out that way. I mean, it's just, we're not prepared for more more development that is not truly thought well out and taken the time to parse out what other options are available and how we can keep people safe here. It's really sad. I mean, I really love Coburg. It's
You have 3 minutes.
okay. All right. And I hope that you really take a good look at this, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next will be Walter Becker. Walter Becker,
He will be right with us.
thank you.
Thank you for letting me take just a couple of minutes to share my concern about the new subdivision. As you know, many residents who live on certain streets in Coburg, North Skinner and others, have to get their mails through the post office box. And first thing I want to do is just say that I understand under COVID conditions right now, it's been very, very difficult. But I didn't get any notices of any meetings about this subdivision. And my wife went into the office, the city office, and showed us that 3 notices were returned to them. And it was a little bit disturbing to us that the notices were returned to City Hall and no one reached out to try to contact us, especially since we know they have our address through our water bill and our phone number. And so I don't feel like there's a portion of the residents in the city that really even know about what's going on. I don't know how many they are, honestly, but a phone call or a quick look up in the, see what our post office box number is through our records. I don't think that's really asking too much. And but I am very concerned about the safety of children and senior adults who live on North Skinner and the surrounding streets. Even with the proposed widening of North Skinner, it will be very tight if 2 trucks traveling in opposite directions were traveling on that street. There are so many children who live on the streets and they walking over, as has been already said, to and from the adjacent park and from Skinner and the surrounding areas. And senior adults are always walking their dogs along the street. I can't tell you, every morning I see them. And even more important is the fact that if there was a major fire or a major catastrophe in a new neighborhood, such as a gas leakage that required emergency evacuation, I really believe that fire trucks and other emergency vehicles going in and out of North Skinner, coupled together with an emergency evacuation that's necessary for both current and new residents on North Skinner, would cause gridlock and possibly even put lives in danger. So I can't understand why there's not more exits and entrances, as has already been said, in this whole proposal. I feel like it hasn't been thought out very carefully, and perhaps it's about money. I don't know, but it seems to me that many of the residents of the city that we must put put the safety of the residents before we look at any kind of cost-saving measures. Anyway, I appeal to the city council to please reconsider this plan, and I look forward to seeing a new development there, but not as it is right now.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. Brandon Parks.
All right, can you guys all hear me?
Yeah, and if we could get your address, please.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm Brandon Parks. My family lives at 91181 North Skinner Street. My wife and I have 2 kids who are currently students at Coburg Community Charter School. My wife actually teaches there as well. And we just absolutely love the town of Coburg. We've wanted to live in Coburg for quite some time and feel blessed to get to raise our family here. To start with, I just want to say that my wife and I are actually for the development of a subdivision, as long as it's done the right way that preserves that small town charm or character. and holds the safety of our families as a primary concern. We currently share a long, skinny driveway with Mr. Becker at 91187 and 91189 North Skinner Street. Back when we purchased our property in 2013 to build our current house, our land partition documents actually stated on there that when a development goes into that farmland to the north of us, our neighbors, the Beckers, who've been living next to us, will have their own driveway access from the new subdivision. And we would no longer have to share a driveway. I had no reason to doubt that what was stated in these land documents, and we were actually looking forward to the day when we both could have our own driveways. The current plans don't account for any of this. And I also just want to say that we have several friends who have owned or currently own a Bruce Weikart home, and I've never heard a negative thing about Mr. Weikart or the homes he has built. So the main issue I have, and again, it's already been stated, is that is the safety of my kids and family and all the other families that live nearby. I'm extremely concerned about North Skinner and Coleman being the only access to a subdivision with 40+ homes. I just don't feel it's safe for Skinner and Coleman to be the only access points, especially Skinner. Even with the proposed widening, it's nowhere near wide enough to accommodate all the additional traffic so close to the park and the path to school. We love as a family going on walks, riding bikes around the neighborhood, even just walking to the park with my kids to shoot hoops. My son's finally at the age where he goes to the park and meets up with his buddies. With this increase in traffic, that's definitely a cause of concern for me. It raises my concern level moving forward. I just feel like there needs to be another access road from Willamette Street into the new subdivision in addition to Coleman and Skinner, whether that's an extension of Macy Street or another public street that turns off of Willamette Street. So basically, in conclusion, I'm for the development of a subdivision as long as it preserves that small town feel and is safe for families. Secondly, Skinner and Coleman can't be the only access points. I propose a public road off of Willamette Street in addition to Coleman and Skinner. And then third, I would love for my neighbors, the Beckers, and my family to have our own driveway like the land document stated. And then finally, most importantly, the safety of our kids and families should be the top priority moving forward. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Vilma McDonald. And again, please give us your address.
That was beautifully said, just saying.
Vilma McDonald.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, address please.
32673 East Locust Street is the property that I own. I currently live in Eugene with my husband. And my son lives at that property right now. So I'm in opposition of the subdivision, not because of the homes being built, but like what's been said already, the access to the subdivision. I have my mom who is, if I said her age, she would be mad at me. She lives behind the house. She's getting older and slower. And, you know, safety is a huge concern. So I can't see how this development is really going to enhance the feel around the park, the streets that we live on. So that's all I want to say is that we're in opposition, and we really hope that the city council will at least ask the developer to do what's necessary to make it safe for all of us who love Coburg. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. Tom Tamburini.
Hey, Bruce.
Address?
Hey, Brandon. Oh, yeah. I own the lot. My wife and I own at 91180 North Skinner. It's currently undeveloped. It's just north of Locust and just at the end, just between Locust and Van Dyne. It's less than 100 feet from this development. We purchased the lot in 2019, and we've spent some time and some money to get it cleaned up and get it ready for home. We actually just finished having a custom home design, spent considerable money on that. It was kind of a challenge trying to fit it into, it's a very small lot. It's like 65 by 60 or something like that. But we were able to meet all the criteria that the city requires. We've gotten that previously approved by the Planning Commission, pretty much met, we were able to meet it. We purchased a lot because of the quiet location near the park and the wonderful feeling of community that you get when spending time on the streets of Coburg. We feel that it would be a perfect place to retire, especially after having our wonderful future I bet that you'll have less than 1 cars an hour passing through there. It's really a wonderful place. It's just so quiet. The street's narrow, but it really doesn't matter because the people living at the end of North Skinner and on Van Dyne are very respectful of each other. I mean, they come through there at the slowest possible speed you could even imagine. And when I've been out there doing lot cleanup, everyone will stop and talk to me, ask me who I am, what are you doing? And it's just a wonderful little community right there. However, I think once you have 45 plus houses added to the north end of Skinner, a little peaceful corner of town is going to really change. If the people in each of these new homes decide to use North Skinner on a daily basis, it's just really going to change life there. I encourage each of the council members to please walk up to North Skinner and take a look for yourselves. I'm actually not opposed to the development at all. Growth's a natural part of the community. We want to be part of it. And I think Bruce Weichert builds wonderful homes. He's a nice guy. I have no problem with him whatsoever. In fact, I even asked him to build my house, but he said he was going to be too busy. Now I know why. Overall, I truly believe this development will be an asset to the community. It's sure to have families living there that feel the same way about Coburg that we do. I'm just really worried if you take it from 16 feet to 20 feet without really, if we just please don't take away any more of our already small easement capability. I actually like the idea of putting the bollards at the end of the street, because I understand you probably need to have emergency access through there, but just really be considerate of the people that are going to be there, including ourselves. I strongly suggest that the council consider the technical objections. They've already been stated. I don't need to restate any of them, and just look for alternative ways. I think some of them that were proposed today are valid, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and you'll get to know me over time. And thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Tamburini. Robert Valdez. And again, I need your address when you start, please. Robert Valdez.
Yes, good evening, Council. My name is Robert Valdez. I live at 32657 East Locust Street, and I'm in opposition of the current plans for the subdivision. Again, I don't oppose planned compliant growth in Coburg. I'd love to have more neighbors enjoy the community that I've grown to love in the 3 years that I've been here. I have the advantage of working from home and looking out my window and seeing my neighbors enjoy walks and bike rides near the park, through Locust Street and Harrison, and around the park. And I'm very concerned about the increased traffic that will change really the composition of our community. So that we heard from some very eloquent neighbors, and I'm appreciative of that. And I would just like to echo my my opposition to the subdivision as submitted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Valdez. And with that page here. Staff response to testimony. Henry.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to add, I really appreciate everyone's testimony and comments and concerns. Over these past few weeks, I've received a lot of phone calls from concerned residents, and I've truly enjoyed speaking to them about the proposal, explaining it, and kind of addressing the issues that they had. That being said, I will make a few comments. It appears a lot of the issues are surrounding access. I'll note Track D, it was noted Track D blocks Macy Street. That can be fixed. It is up for discussion. As I said, the applicant would not be opposed to extending Macy Street to the edge of the subdivision. Also, it's been brought up about the proposed modification, the maps. That's something council has the ability to consider. While the proposal in front of you is the tentative map dated June 9th, 2020, option C most aligns with the options that the applicant would not be opposed to. And that's all I have to say in response to the comments.
Thank you, Henry. Are there any questions to any of Henry's comments that he just gave from council?
I have a question.
Councilor Lehman.
So track D to Macy, does that give a third egress?
No, it would not. If Macy is extended to the edge of the subdivision boundary, it would be stubbed as a future extension of right of way. It would not be an official egress or access point.
Any other questions from council?
Councillor Fox has one.
Pardon me?
Councillor Fox is raising his hand.
Oh, there you are. I see you. Councilor Fox. You're muted. Still muted.
Here we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So if the Macy Street stub was there, what's blocking Macy Street from being connected?
A private property, I believe it's tax lot 600 and 300.
Oh, so there's a building there.
Yeah, that's someone's property that the applicant does not own, nor does the city. So.
Okay. So there's a home blocking the way.
Yeah, I mean, there's
property.
Private property may have home structures on it. Yes.
Okay. So it didn't do much.
Question.
Councilor McConnell.
A lot, I tried to pull my map back up and I can't see it now. Lot 300 is owned by the Hoffmans, and they said that they would be willing to make some negotiations. Is that correct?
No, that is not what I heard. I heard that he said he hoped that that was not in his lifetime.
I heard that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, question,
Yes, Councilor McConnell.
does Sarah go east any farther than the development? I know it starts at the end of North Miller, somewhere in there. It's kind of messy, but can it be connected to North Miller?
I'm looking at the tentative map, and Sarah does not. It just goes North Skinner. You would turn right, Sarah, and then you could exit via Coleman. And Sammy, it might be helpful to pull up the map that we're talking about. I believe it's one of the first few slides.
Well, Sarah also
There you go.
continues past North Miller. There is a Sarah that goes into the development at the end of North Miller.
Yes, but there's houses between that east part of Sarah and the proposed Sarah in this development.
Well, there's houses in there, but do they own all the property?
Yes. So off to the right, that map that you see off to the right there, those properties are residential properties with homes on them.
With big trees. One of them has great big trees on it,
Yes.
and they own all that property. It's not like an easement that just kind of they took over.
Oh, they're standard residential lots with houses.
I have a question.
Yes.
Councilor Fox?
Did the proponents of the subdivision review the people who are suggesting alternatives? Did they have a chance to review alternative A, B, and C?
Are you asking if the applicant has an opportunity to review those A, B, and C options? Is that your question?
Yes,
Yes, to my knowledge, they have reviewed those, yes.
and their response was the Stub
Uh,
Street.
Yeah, like I said, option C most aligns with the conditions that they would not be opposed to.
And keep in mind, for clarification, that you can only ask clarifying questions, but we do have the applicant's rebuttal next.
Certainly,
And
they could.
they're provided 10 minutes.
Okay.
Mayor, it's Marcus.
Go ahead, Counselor Alexander.
Van Dunn, what is that access right there? I know there's a fence right there. Is that someone's property
Yes.
between Skinner and, okay.
Well, it's, if you look at the applicant's lot 6, 7, and 8, there is I guess it's 20 feet wide of North Skinner that's already there. And then, then there's 2 pieces of private property between that piece of Van Dyne and the western portion of Van Dyne.
Okay.
Any other questions from council before we move to the applicant's rebuttal?
I have one more question.
Go ahead, Counselor Alexander.
North Harrison Street, can that wrap around the end of that block?
No,
It's outside of, go ahead, Henry.
Yeah, it's outside of the urban growth boundary and city limits, and Lane County would come into play, and that's nothing we really want to get into at this time. Yeah, Lane County would need to be involved, and to this point, they have not been involved in that discussion.
Okay.
I have one more
Councilor McConnell.
question. Someone suggested that this could be denied and resubmitted. What does that mean?
So I guess there's 2 options. The applicant, council has not made a decision yet. So the applicant is always welcome to withdraw their application. And that would save them a 1-year waiting period. If council denies the application, there's a 1-year waiting period from submitting a substantially similar proposal.
So it would basically delay anything they could do for 1 year.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Henry, can you give us some kind of an idea of what substantially similar would be versus something very different? I mean, if they move the streets around and change some lots, is that still substantially similar?
Yeah, Ann Davies, are you on the line?
Yes, I
You
am.
wanna take that one?
Yeah, I'm kind of wishing I had read those cases. There's a lot of codes throughout the state that use similar language for once something's denied, they say you can't resubmit substantially similar application. And that is code language. So it's really up to the council to determine what you think that means.
Yeah.
And you should be making that interpretation consistently each time you look at it, but I'm certainly not familiar that the council has looked at that issue recently. So when you're not being asked to interpret it right now, it would be if this application was denied and the applicant came in 2 months later, you would be then called to determine whether that was substantially similar, but not helping you much with what that definition is because it's really up to you. I have certain opinions about how different an application would need to be. I would think that it would be reasonable to say that if there's an application that the council believes is worthy of denial because of access issues, and then something was presented that they thought was worthy of approval, that would be not substantially similar. But that kind of puts the cart before the horse.
And so again, to be clear, we aren't determining that now. It's when the reapplication would occur that we would have to determine whether we can substantially similar.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more question.
Councilor Fox.
A separate discussion, it was mentioned.
No discussion, clarification questions. Sorry.
Right, it's clarification.
Okay.
It was mentioned that the 2 or 3 parcels that were set aside for green space, that they're actually a culvert, and so it wouldn't be really any fun place for children to play. Is that accurate?
I'll defer somewhat on that to the applicant's final rebuttal, but what I can tell you from the code perspective of it is that we believe the applicant has met their burden in relation to the parks and open space because they're willing to pay that 1% fee. So we're not so much relying on the dedication of land.
Plus they're paying 1%.
We find that met simply by them willing to pay that 1% fee of the gross sale price of each lot.
Question on that.
Go ahead, Councilor McConnell.
According to some of the testimony, that is paid when the lot actually sells, and so there is a kind of an extensive timeline perhaps before that money is received, right? I thought someone said it needed to
provide
be
you with the
paid
best
up front.
information, Sammy, forward to the conditions of approval. So that the condition relating to that is exactly what the code says. So I don't have a good answer for you. Yeah, there certainly are unknowns, but I can only tell you what the code says in relation to that. It's in the red. It's near the bottom in the red. Number 10.
I can't see number 10. Can you move it up just a tad more, Sammy?
Sammy, maybe highlight it, or it's
because it's red on black isn't the easiest to read.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
Subdivider shall, in addition to setting aside land, pay into a public land acquisition fund a sum of money equal to 1% of the gross sale price of each lot in the subdivision, which sum of money shall be paid at the time each lot is developed or sold, whichever occurs first.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions before applicant's rebuttal? All right, thank you, counselors. We're going to call for applicant's rebuttal. You'll have 10 minutes.
Hello.
Hello.
Well, thank you, everyone. I also, too, wanted to thank everyone for all their comments and all the citizen comments. We do pay a lot of attention to those concerns of the communities. In fact, we've actually met with many of the neighbors surrounding this property in person. I've personally met with several of them, and we've actually had extensive phone calls with the appellants. And we had a actually very friendly meeting with the appellants in City Park one evening as well to try to come up with any solutions that would be possible. I guess we take deference with Teresa and Kathy Ingebrigtsen, who keep stating that there's code violations. This has been reviewed by the city staff on many occasions, all the different department heads, the fire chief, the police chief, the public works department, the city engineer, and former city planner, and now the new city planner, Henry, who has done an exhaustive job and has reviewed the voluminous material that's been handed into him, and they are all of the belief that there are no code violations. One of the criticisms from Teresa too was that this subdivision, we can only pride in the subdivision, the street interconnectivity within the piece of land that's subject of the application. And in fact, this subdivision provides for several access points, 3 future roads to go to the north for the future land that could be developed. As a subnote on that, if that additional piece of land were added into the urban growth boundary, that was a question from one of the neighbors, I believe, or one of the councilors. There is a connectivity point out through the west of the land that we own, that would go out to the west and connect with the other streets. So if that were ever added, there's 3 instant points of connection right there. Also, of course, we have Skinner and Coleman, and with the new proposals as well, and this is what I was believing was satisfying some of the concerns, or I think mostly satisfied the concerns of the applicants by stubbing our property on Macy up to the edge of the land that we own. That's all we can do. We can't force people, we can't take people's land away from them. We can only do what we can do in our property. This was the concern of the applicant. And we've done that now by extending the street. And that was part of why Track D was actually dedicated to the city. The city could do what they liked with that. That was the previous planners' belief. They could put a park on it. They could extend the road in the future, whatever the city wanted to do. The land would be deeded to the city for their determination what to do. But as one of the conditions that Henry is providing tonight, and I believe the applicants wanted, we would agree with that to actually build that road, if that was what was desired, up to the western boundary of our property. And similarly with Van Doyne, basically exactly the same thing. We would dedicate the right of way along Van Doyne, improving the access for those people there, also improving emergency access to those couple houses at least that exist there on Van Doyne. And again, we can't put the road through on Van Doyne. We don't own the land there. So basically the subdivision does meet the code requirement that we're providing access for interconnectivity. As I say, there's actually would then be 3, there would be 6 access points for connectivity. Also, I think one thing that would be of assurance to, and I also really appreciate all the kind words said tonight, and I know nobody loves new development, but I really appreciate all the kind words that were said as well. We have worked very hard to try to address everyone's concerns. Mr. Parks, Mr. Becker, Tom Tamburini, and all those folks that lived on Skinner, they may be very happy then if the city council were to agree with the suggestion of the appellants to add bollards on Skinner, because that will stop that traffic, just allowing for bicycles and pedestrians to flow down Skinner. Skinner is the narrower street of the two, as you know, and that may, I think, well, obviously that would satisfy all those comments from all those citizens that spoke tonight. We have agreed to also pay the park fee, which has been stated, which complies with the code, but we've also agreed to donate tracks A, B, C, D. Just for clarification, we did have a landscape architect prepared a plan for the park usage of tracks A through D, and it was pretty attractive. There was a layout with a walking path, so it's not a culvert, just to make sure that is clarified. It's not a drainage culvert at all. These would be like a swale area that could have pathways, whatever the city would like to develop. But we had provided a conceptual plan to the Planning Commission that showed, you could have walking paths, there was picnic tables, tracked. A at the very end is completely open. That could be used. There's nothing there, just could be a little field area, could be picnic tables, a play structure. So all along there could be trees and walking paths, benches, and some of them I've seen developed with these little exercise stations along the way. So I think there's actually some quite nice usage that the city. I also wanted to remind everyone, I was kind of disappointed in the letter that Peggy Wells read from the former planning officer, counselor, where he was stating that he would be upset to see this residential development. That's frustrating to me because this land was designated and designed by the city and probably by the planning department to be for single-family residential homes. And it's been zoned residential for a very, very long time. So this is something that has been provided for, designed, and that's the use that we're proposing. We're not proposing apartments or some low-income housing that would be maybe. This is actually just following the city's designation. Also, I think that Teresa had mentioned she hadn't seen any construction drawings or how the city street improvements would be done off-site. That is all to be done in conjunction with the city engineer through the PEPI process. So, the thickness of the asphalt and compaction. So she said she hadn't seen cross sections. That process is all done through the city engineer during the PEPI process. I was also encouraged, though, to hear that many of the citizens, including Alan Wells and Teresa, both say that they support the development, but they were looking for greater access, and they were supportive of the idea of adding this extra paving and also installing the bollards on Skinner to make that a little safer coming down that little more narrow street. And I think that is everything that I had to say. So thank you very much.
Patty, for reminding me. Thank you, Mr. Weichert. Do we have any clarifying questions for the rebuttal? Councillor Alexander.
I don't know if it cut out or what, but what were the 6 points of access?
So we would have the 2 existing accesses that are available to the property right now. In addition, we would be building the property up to the edge of the western boundary on Macy for future connectivity. I think, Councillor, I was saying that the subdivision we can provide for the web interconnectivity that Teresa was talking about, only within our subdivision. We can't control the rest of the city or how the city streets are laid out. We are providing, she was saying, well, we're not designed in the web manner. And I think Kathy reiterated that too. But we are designed in the web layout and the interconnectivity of streets. So we have 3 future stubs to the north to provide for future connectivity. We have the 2 streets to the south, Skinner and Coleman. Plus we have Macy that we are stubbing out to the edge of our property. That's all we can do. We can only build and stub to the edge of our property. And also on Van Doyne, we've agreed that we could also stub the street and widen Van Doyne to go to the western boundary property too. So just for clarity, there'd be two streets going through now, but we're within the code compliance of providing for street interconnectivity, which is all we can do.
Thank you, Mr. Weichert. Any other questions from council? Councillor Fox.
So I understood, I'm a visual learner. Would there be any drawings of what the streets would look like, access to the Coleman widening and the, well, I have a visual of what a Bolster looks like, so whatever the word is. But that street beforehand where the gravel and, I have a hard time visualizing all that with all that words that went by.
I believe, Henry, do you have that?
I have nothing readily available, but let me quickly look and see. And if so, I'll send it to Sammy real quick. But I'm not entirely sure.
I think there was one, Councillor Fox, there was one drawing there that provided it showed where the bollards would be on Skinner and the widening of Van Doyne, and also the extension of the Macy Street. I don't think it went off-site though to show the Foreman paving.
Councillor Fox, there's Article 8, page 48.
Okay.
Has kind of a basic layout of the street detail standard.
A visual?
Kind of shows, yeah, kind of shows a cross section and then an overhead view of kind of where you'd come in and out and kind of how the streets are laid out.
So I found a typical cross section, and it's probably in your packet somewhere and maybe buried, but I can send it to Sammy right now.
And like Henry said, it's on page 48 of the old staff report.
Okay, Sammy, can you pull it up on your computer perhaps?
I'm not sure that answers Counselor Fox's question though. Is that what you're looking for, is a street profile?
Yeah, and where the gravel would, not the current street profile, but what's gonna be done to it and all that parking
Yeah.
stuff. And
That's it. It's in the large packet, page 48.
all right, I'll look at that. That answers my question.
Any other questions for the rebuttal from the applicant? Hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Weichert.
you.
At this time, it is 8:23 and I will close the public hearing for this event. At this point, we can open up deliberation and discussion. Trying to read my notes here. All right, all I have is deliberation. I'm going to ask Ann Davies to help me with our deliberation process.
Yeah, so Henry and I kind of talked about this ahead of time of how we can help you proceed. I mean, there's so many issues. The main one appears to be obviously the access issues. And so what you could do is you could just go around the table and people can voice their opinions about where they are on approving the access as presented or access as it's been amended in the last couple days, and just start the conversation that way.
Okay, I agree. Looks like Councilor Lehman's right on that. He's got his hand up.
Well, I'm considering making a motion to approve the Planning Commission final order with the Weichert subdivision proposal with the revised provisions presented, including the bike ped option and the 20-foot paved width on Coleman and the reserve strips and the 10-foot wide planting screen easement. And I just wonder what other things that were brought up that would be included in a motion that seems to be agreeable to both the appellants and the city.
Well, I think at this time, I'd like to not get a motion on the table. I would like to have deliberation and discussion.
Yeah.
I wasn't making a motion. I was just saying what I would consider to be a motion and what would be added to that motion.
Okay. That would be the concerns. And I guess I'll start off with my concerns that maintaining the grid and the access for the future, whether or not we can get them now, is a concern for me. And so the Macy Van Dyne aspects are important to me, and I think for the future of the city. Whether or not we get them now or in John Hoffman's lifetime, I think we need to plan for that because the comprehensive plan states that we should be doing that, and I agree with that comprehensive plan statement. But I have some serious concerns about taking the proposal to take the ingress and egress down to one current street, which is Coleman, with bollards on Skinner Street. The fire chief says he'll sign off on it. I just personally have some issues with it that really concern me, that we're already talking about spreading the traffic over 2 or 2.5 streets, but then to all of a sudden push it all over to one street and have that be the only access and egress for that neighborhood doesn't sound good to me. So those are my concerns. Another concern is the open space and truly being able to have some kind of parks and recreation aspect there. The applicant states that those are not bioswales or drainage ditches. If that's so, is it something that we can use? And I know from previous experience, that's something that the planning commission was supposed to determine. And so if we change what is presented or proposed, especially by taking the right of way, the street on Macy all the way to the edge of the property, and basically putting a street there and just stopping the paving at the end of the current property and hoping for access in the future. That takes a lot of that land away. Now, the other aspect of this parks and recreation aspect of it is that should be the first try, is to provide that parks and recreation. And when that can't be done, then they pay the 1%. It's not a either or, it's first try this one, then if it can't be done, we move forward. I don't know if we've met that process, and I just want to address it because I know there will be concern from the city, from the citizens about that kind of proposal. So Lane.
Are you okay with 4 separate parcels being the set aside for park and recreation area as opposed to one contiguous parcel?
I don't think so. When I looked at the options, there was one, they were all just very skinny pieces, which makes a trail basically, not necessarily a park. And from my experience for years, not just this development, for years of putting trails in or not providing for a park area, open recreation area, it just is, it takes away from what we're trying to build this community as a place with these open spaces that neighbors and our citizens use all the time. You think about the current parks that we have. I have some serious reservations about strips of open land that can be essentially nothing, a trail with a picnic table on the side of it.
So that would mean you would want them to come back with a different proposal, restructuring the open land to be one parcel instead of 4 smaller parcels.
I'd certainly like to see that, yes. I think that's important. And I don't know where we stand with the density requirements. I hear that it's not required. I hear that it is required. And the density was part of the problem from what I'm reading in the appellants and the testimony. I don't know where we stand with that, but I would certainly personally just like to see a good block of land usable for the parks and recreation. And that's supposed to be our first priority. And then if that's not possible, then we go to the 1%.
So has Weichert been approached with that and willing to give up, for example, 1 or 2 lots contiguous to create this park space?
Yes, we have.
This is Henry. I'll chime in. It was brought to the applicant approached me. If there are serious concerns about the parks and open space, the applicant is not opposed to also dedicating lot 2 as park and open space. And if I'm wrong, Bruce or Tony, you can please correct me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it would actually, I believe, Henry, it would be lot 1.
So track D and lot 1.
And lot 1, yes.
Well, I would agree that having one contiguous space as opposed to 4 separate ones throughout the 46 or so lots would be a better avenue for the city.
Well, we actually agree with that, Councillor, and we would actually be prepared to donate lots 1 and 2, which would give a very nice large chunk.
And is that in addition to the 1%?
Excuse me, I think the public hearing is closed. Can we clarify?
Public hearing is closed.
Is closed.
And so is that in addition to the 1%?
You can't.
Yes, yes, it is.
So Councilor Lehman, I think that objection was basically that we really shouldn't be going back and forth with the applicant at this point.
Right.
it makes it complicated because we do want to do some negotiating on the fly here, but that's not really appropriate process wise.
And I have a question from Councilor McConnell, it looks like.
Tract D and Lot 1 go right through where the Macy's stub is. And so what good is that? That would be where there would be potential future access egress, but now we have a park in the middle of it? That would not work.
That would go away.
Henry, can you clarify that tract D was going to be swapped?
I'll tell you, to my knowledge, what I'm aware of. If Macy Street goes through, that takes away tract D. Lot 1 becomes tract D. That's it.
And
And
then
then a small park.
also what's also clear in the record, and this was before that most recent conversation, that the applicant has said it's not just that swap of tract D, but in order to make a park, they would be willing to donate Lot 1 and Lot 2.
That's correct.
Yes, that's what I heard.
And so that would, in effect, get rid of that access for Macy then, correct?
No. So tract
So
D,
tract D, it would loop up around to tract D, and then you'd have 1 and 2 as the park space.
exactly.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
So
Councilor Bell? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councilor McConnell.
Clarification on that, because the map I'm looking at shows that Macy Street is in between tax lots 600 and 300, kind of in between both of them, and tract D and 1 go right in the middle of that. And so what exactly are they proposing? Because that does not look right with this map I'm looking at. I understand the idea, but it doesn't look like it would work. It would be part of tract 1 and 2, or tract 1.
Sammy, can you pull up that map so Henry can walk through that?
Sure. All right, so the applicant is not opposed to removing tract D, because that's gonna, Macy Street's gonna continue right here. You probably can't see what I'm pointing to.
Yeah.
And then Lot 1 will become tract D, essentially parks and open space. And then the applicant would also not be opposed to Lot 2 to a park and open space to create that contiguous park and open space. So basically, this whole northwestern section would be a park and a future street extension. Has the ability to.
I think
thought
that's
he
a-
meant-
Councilor
That-
McConnell, go ahead.
That, I understand the concept, but tract D and 1 intersect where Macy's Street is, so they would have to redefine something there or turn Macy's Street on an angle.
I would suspect that we would have just a straight through on Macy Street. And with the potential dedication of 1 and 2 to parks, even if the Macy infringed upon 1, having half of 1 and all of 2 would still provide a substantial open space, I think, that could be used for a park. And would be centrally located for an existing neighborhood and the new neighborhood, it looks to me.
But would be next to what would at some point become a very busy street. So there's that.
So
Any other questions?
Yeah, Councilor Blaine. So if we do, so say that Macy Street, we set it up that way. In the future, we end up getting that access. That creates a real big problem for North Harrison, again, back into East Locust or Macy out to Willamette, basically. I know that's down the road, but that seems like we're just kind of moving the problem a couple streets away. Just a thought.
Well, this is Counselor Bell. In all honesty, from what I've heard and read and reread and reread, I think that a lot of the appellant's concerns relate to not in my backyard, not wanting to
Right.
see, and I don't say that that's wrong. But I also know that as we've heard this, we heard as we were developing Hatfield, we heard a lot of concerns about how terrible it was going to be on the already failing intersection, what the impact was going to be on Water and Bruce. I think we heard it as we developed Coburg Crossing. I think there was tremendous concern about what that was going to do to those neighborhoods and those small streets. I don't know that that's come to fruition. And I think change is really hard. And I think we all acknowledge that, but it's how do we manage that? I also wonder if there is a way that we could somehow, and I don't know this, but somehow loop this into our Coburg loop paths, because our loop path comes right off of Sarah. I mean, that's not that far, and I don't know what that would take. I think what we're struggling with is a lot of these streets and why they didn't punch through initially. This was all old railroad right away. And that's what we're struggling with at this point.
Well,
So I don't know. Okay, go ahead.
There's further, because when you look at the planning, and I know Councilor McConnell's been on the planning commission too, but a lot of the stuff that we've put in where we want to continue the grid pattern and have these through streets, those are because of lessons learned before. That Van Dyne, where it's only 20 feet wide, is a classic. And I believe it was on Skinner Street that there was only a 20-foot right of way to the south that we had to correct in developments.
Yeah.
And I believe, again, lessons learned, and we can't let that lesson go by on this one. I think we need to really push for maintaining that grid. It needs to be set up so that we show the future that, yes, that Van Dyne should be going through and Macy should be going through. To rely on the count of 6 access points in this neighborhood, with 3 of them being to the north, waiting for the UGB to expand and develop there. That's years down the road, up to 20 years or more, I believe. After we went through the UGB trying to get that area into our UGB and it was remanded back to us, I think we all have to accept those accesses to the north or egresses are a long ways down the road. I believe that setting up Van Dyne and Macy are real important, and we should be looking to set that infrastructure up. And at the appropriate time, which will never be the appropriate time, but at some hard moment, we're going to have to decide to take that private property and make those streets come through for the growth of our city.
So Mayor, would that then, is that eminent domain? Can I ask that question? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it certainly could be, or it could be a negotiated purchase from the landowner.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Well,
Councilor McConnell.
I hate to be the one raising my hand, but I would like to speak specifically to my concerns about traffic on Skinner moving on to Locust in front of our parks. That to me is the biggest issue to this proposal. And I like the idea of the bollards or whatever they're called. That eliminates a problem, but then it does create another concern, which is only access to Coleman. And so I would like for us to discuss that, and I'd like to hear other counselors' thoughts on it. But I would have very grave concerns about traffic on Locust Street. I cannot even imagine what that would do to our park. So,
Sammy, I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, I would just like to hear other counselors' thoughts on it.
Sammy, could you bring up, I'm trying to remember, but there was the 3 options, ABC, I believe, that might illustrate this so we can have the discussion.
Sammy, that's part of Teresa's presentation, just FYI, if you need to look for it.
And while we're pulling it up, I would agree with Councilor McConnell. You know, ultimately, the Bullard addresses that, but then you get this development with only one egress access, which I think is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I mean, imagine a car breaks down right there, and then something happens and people need to leave. I mean, you can always come up with an answer to that, but there should be at least 2, if not 3. I mean, you think Hayden Homes has 1, 2, 3. And even the new one on the north side of town has 2. There's a north one and one on the east side of town, I guess east-west.
Well, and I certainly agree with that, only having 1 egress. Now, there is the potential to remove the bollards and open up Skinner Street, but that's such in an emergency, it just creates other issues for me. And we've had that issue before Hatfield Estates was created, because if there was an accident on Van Dyne just to the east of the fire station, there was no way to get to anything east of them. And it's the same kind of situation here. You know, yeah, certainly would be really nice to be able to punch one of those other streets through and then protect the park more, which I would agree with. But we don't have that option right now, so we've got to wait for the clock to tick until we can do that, or figure out what we're going to do with the Skinner bollards and everything that are coming in one of these proposals.
Right, and if the bollards aren't used and Skinner is still an access point, more than half the traffic will choose that route.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And that will be bad.
Unless they're going to I-5 or something.
Councilor Lehman.
Well, it seems that we have some agreement between the appellants and the applicant in terms of some modifications to the final order that the planning committee had that would be a compromise and that would be acceptable to both parties. But we also have Teresa Bischow asserting that she feels that the proposal should be rejected for violations of code and the comprehensive plan. So I'm a little confused on how we're proceeding with this. On one hand, I'm thinking that I like the idea of the bollards and the bike ped option, because it seems to satisfy both what some of the appellants are complaining about, as well as what the applicant is willing to do. And it does take the traffic away from the park, which is a safety concern by many. So I come back to making a proposal of a motion from which I want the other council members to say that they can add to or subtract from to move this forward. So with that, I would say that I'm considering making a motion to approve the planning committee final order on the Wycott subdivision proposal with revised provisions presented, including the bollards and the bike ped option, and the 20-foot paved width on Coleman, and the reserve strips, and the 10-foot wide planting strip easements, and the change to lots 1 and 2 being designated as park space with the 1% fee also being applied. So if that were a motion, what would the other counselors like to see added or subtracted from that?
Negotiations for the Macy Street easement.
I would like the full development of the Van Dyne easement to what we can do outside of the private property in between.
So are those things to be added into the motion? Because if we don't get a motion on the floor and voted on, then we're basically asking the developer to withdraw his proposal and come back with a revised proposal.
Well, aren't we still discussing and trying to get an idea of, you know, everybody's thoughts and opinions and where things should go and how to, you know, best make decisions rather than jump straight to a motion that we're unsure of?
I'm just saying the motion is the framework upon which you can do that.
Understood, but I mean, that seems like we should be talking about more of what the process is going to be to kind of get everybody on the same page, because it feels like there's, you know, maybe we're not quite there yet, rather than talking about a future motion.
And I would agree with that. We have the staff report with the additional conditions, and we need to look at those. We've had the discussion about the one egress, continuing the grid. Another issue that I would like to bring up is Skinner Street improvements. Part of the element of Coburg that I think makes it appealing to so many people is the fact that our streets are the sidewalks, they're the multimodal transportation for our city. And one of the reasons that we get constant comments about sidewalks, one way or the other, some people want sidewalks, a lot of people don't want sidewalks. But I think if you start putting sidewalks in, you start making clear traffic lanes that are going to increase the speed and, for me, increase the danger that it occurs throughout our city. Most people are very aware that streets are the sidewalks for our city, and so they do drive carefully, as expressed by some of the testimony. So I get real concerned when we start saying we're going to widen streets to the street standard of 20 feet wide and then put parking strips and shoulders and everything else in there. I don't think that improves the safety of our streets. I think it actually increases the danger in our streets, because it makes the cars feel more free to speed up and move along instead of being careful in a narrow street to move over or watch what's going on. And I remember one of the recommendations about a narrow street was, I believe, Candlelight Drive. Well, I'm very familiar with Candlelight Drive. It has sidewalks on both sides. And yes, people do have to pull over to let another car come through. But if there's no car there, they're zipping through because the sidewalks are there and the pedestrians aren't, and all it is a car traffic issue. And I don't think that's a good comparison for us, because I disagree with sidewalks in most of the residential area. And that's part of why I do that. So the development on McKenzie or on Skinner to widen that and put more paving in, I think exacerbates safety issues. It doesn't fix them in my mind.
I would disagree with you on Skinner. You've got to improve Skinner to have any kind of safety there, because even the way it is now, and I walk around that area all the time, cars buzz through there. And you've got to improve Skinner. Whether it's improved to the actual street standards or not, I don't know. But as I look at Skinner and I look to the north on Skinner, and I see cars parked everywhere. I mean, they're everywhere. The one property owner down there must have at least 10 vehicles, and they're parked on his lawn and they're parked everywhere. That isn't going to change. I mean, it'll have to change, I guess, if we open up Skinner into a development. But you know, I would love to see some sidewalks walking up Mackenzie up to Willamette. That's really dangerous with Chiefs on one side and the new Coburg Inn on the other. That's very dangerous. Cars pull out of there all the time and they
Well, and
pay
again,
no attention.
I want to clarify that I was talking to strictly residential. Around the parks and the commercial area, a whole different matter with sidewalks. Councilor McConnell had a question or a statement?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to get us back on track. If we're talking about not using Skinner as an egress, then we would have a different conversation about the improvement to Skinner. And I agree with Councilor Lehman that we need to get somewhere, but I also agree with Councilor Blaine that everyone needs to be part of the conversation. And I would like to hear from Councilor Blaine and Councilor Alexander, because I don't think we've heard from them tonight about their thoughts on the presentation. So I would personally like to hear from them.
I'm glad to talk. I'm going to echo a lot of what the mayor is saying. If we close down Skinner, not close, but we put the barriers at the end of Skinner to make that a walking street, it's a great idea. Coleman's already a pretty fast street by itself. If we do improve Skinner and we make that wider and we let that go through, it will be faster traffic going through there. I think because it's so thin right now, it feels fast. But if you make it wider, I guarantee people are going to go faster. So those two streets right there are the only ways to go in and out. I don't want to talk about Van Dunn and Macy because that's a pipe dream right now.
Yeah.
That's not even real. So that's not an access in any way to me as far as vehicles. I don't really see the 6 points of access for a vehicle. I see 2, Skinner and Coleman. Sure, Locust comes onto Skinner. That will change that whole park area totally. We might as well fence it off or something. The fact that it's wide open, somebody can go right off the road. We've already heard of all the problems with traffic going through there and how fast people zip through. There's been more than once where I've grabbed my daughter's hand and pulled her to the side. It's just going to get even more so in that area. So that park is wide open for problems. Skinner is wide open for problems. You do something to those 2 areas, you leave Coleman as almost a highway going in and out.
There you go.
You're going to be adding 80 plus cars going on one street, or even just 2, 80 plus cars. I don't see why we even think that's fine. It isn't fine. It will totally change the feeling of this historical area. I bought my home in the historical section for that reason. I have followed that we can walk along the streets and tried to stay on course with keeping that culture within our city. That will be wiped off.
What is
Sure,
your
you can walk.
proposal?
Sure, you can walk to the side. There really isn't very many proposals. What I think we're moving really fast to get something done without really preparing in the way that we should as Coburg. And I don't know why we have to move so fast. I'm sure it's a financial reason, but a person's life does not have a financial limit on it. There are a ton of children in this area.
Well, I can, sorry.
Councilor Blaine. Thank you, Councilor Alexander.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely echo a lot of what Councilor Alexander said. You know, when we first moved here, we lived on North Harrison Street, and then across to East Locust to Vilma McDonald's house, where we built another house. And that intersection is so busy with people flying around that park. And with young kids, it is incredibly scary. I would never let them on East Locust. I still don't want them on East Locust, even as, you know, that now that they're older and a little more self-sufficient. But if you get all that traffic coming down and looping around that park, it is dangerous. And I just think that Skinner is just not a viable access point to the subdivision. It's just not built for it. And anyway, Coleman is very different. I think it will definitely turn into a highway, and I think that will get a little more congested, so people will come back towards the park off those side streets, and it's just going to create a lot of chaos in that old town Coburg, which, as it sounds like everybody agrees, is very important to everybody that lives here and walks around these neighborhoods. So, you know, I also agree, like, the development is there, it's already zoned, it makes sense as far as just adding homes, but if you can't get there safely, is it worth it to the city? I don't know. That's my biggest concern.
And I agree with that. I'm not against this development at all, but we have to take the right steps to do this. We cannot bypass for the end result. We have to do this correctly.
So do we feel like there were code violations? Are you seeing code violations?
I think there are code sidesteps. I don't know if they're direct violations, but they're sidesteps.
Anybody else agree with that?
Counselor McConnell?
I agree with Counselor Alexander. I don't understand at this point why it was approved by the Planning Commission. Having worked on the Planning Commission for 7 years, and then my husband served for 8 years, and watching some of the things that slipped through because we're not willing to say this is not okay just because planning says it's okay. There's got to be another way. And I watched it with the Hayden homes. I watched it when Love's tried to come in and build a truck stop. And citizens have been standing up and saying this is not okay. My concern with it is if we say deny and resubmit, what does that look like? Because I totally agree with Councillor Alexander. I cannot approve, from my point of view, a development that's going to be bringing this kind of traffic into the park area. It flies against everything that Coburg is.
Counselor Fox?
I just have a question. So let's say we go to the opposite extreme where we deny this. I heard something earlier that if we take it out of this hands, they can appeal to some other thing and we don't get the decision anymore.
This is Henry. I'll chime in and feel free to correct me. So that was in relation to the 120-day rule, which is August 23rd. And the city has until August 23rd to make a final decision on this application. If the city does not, the applicant has the ability to go to circuit court and file a writ of mandamus, effectively taking the application to circuit court.
Oh, thank you. That clarifies that. So we make decisions.
Counselor Lehman?
So to follow up on that, if the council denies the application, the applicant can come back with, after 1 year of waiting, to resubmit a new proposal.
That's correct, unless it's determined that it's not substantially similar.
Or the applicant can withdraw his application before the council makes this decision, and it can come back in a few months with the revised plan.
Yeah, I don't see why not. Yep.
But it sounds like the applicant has already tried to address the appellant's concerns, and it sounds like, except for with the exception of Teresa Bischoff, still feels the entire application should be denied. It sounds like some of the appellants are saying with these 4 to 6 different revisions that they are in agreement to move forward with this. So now is that councilors feel that even with these mutual agreements, the fact that it puts too many vehicles on the streets near the park is overwhelming, and the entire application should be denied, regardless of the compromises that are being made.
I'd also just like to add, if the application is denied, the applicant has the right to take it to LUBA on appeal. That would be the next step.
Counselor Fox.
So I didn't exactly hear it the way Councillor Lehman did. I heard that no one was really against the development. It was just the impact that it would make and the way, safety and parks. That's what I heard come up.
That's what I heard too.
Okay, well, it sounds to me that the main concern that I've heard from some of the counselors is the direct traffic coming on Skinner directly into the park area, but that perhaps with the bollards and the pedestrian bike pathway on Skinner and the 20-foot wide development on Coleman perhaps would be acceptable?
No,
No.
we're shifting the problem.
So I want to step in here and wonder if we take the staff report with the conditions that were lined in that. I'm going to tell you that my concern is I don't see anything where any of the proposals or conditions answer what we're discussing here. And that's the traffic concern. And I see, I've heard our comprehensive plan and everything is we're supposed to have consideration for existing neighborhoods too, the impact on existing neighborhoods and the transportation. Is that written into the code? I don't know, but I know it's in the comprehensive plan that we have to be concerned about what that does, especially in our historic district. And this is in the middle of our historic district as to what this is doing. And so to me, that is my concern. I don't see any real proposal that addresses that. And I think, to me, the logic is we must mandate that we try to do that grid, that we do try to support the connection of Macy and Van Dyne, not to leave a 20-foot right of way and 50 years later wonder why the people here now making this decision didn't put that land aside and make sure that could go through, because that's what's going to happen before in this city. So I think those things need to be addressed. I don't know if we can fix the Skinner and Coleman, which are the only two accesses right now we can accept, and have a fix for this traffic problem in the historic district and our existing neighborhoods. Councilor Fox.
I had asked a question earlier, maybe Henry, you can come up with this, but I asked about the traffic study and I was like, yes, we have a traffic study. It was all fine.
My concern about the traffic study, and this, I've heard this so many times in this city, the traffic study is done to standards and the engineers look at the standards and they say, you're well within the standards. That is totally acceptable, but not by Coburg standards, because you're going to increase the traffic of a street by twofold, threefold. The engineer says, that's okay. That street is designed to handle that.
Oh.
The residents and the neighbors say, no, we don't want 2 or 3-fold increase in our transportation area. So yeah, it's okay by the engineers, but it's not okay by our residents. Councilor McConnell.
And I would like to just add on to that, that came up with the Hayden Homes that, oh yes, there's plenty of, it's not a problem at all. And we don't need to worry about traffic going through Coburg. And guess what? We've had to put a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit on some of our side streets because of their traffic study that said everything would be fine. And it's like Mayor Ray said, it may be fine to their standards, but not to Coburg.
And I will note that I spoke to some of the citizens living on those streets, and they're like appreciative of the signs that are supposed to slow people down, but they think they need stop signs because it ain't slowing them down that much.
I agree.
So
So
can
where are
we
we?
go, so can we go to Henry's staff report that listed conditions and just take those one by one and see where we stand as we go through this? Megan? And by the way, Megan's the one that's bringing up the illustrations and stuff.
Thank you, Megan.
So I'm
Yes.
referring to the yellow and the red and the blue, I believe, the three different colors that were listed when Henry was giving the presentation. I think that might give us some points to actually discuss and determine where we're going. So these are the conditions of approval. We have both the planning commission in the yellow. What Henry was talking about that he's recommending for staff is the red. And then the blue is those proposals that are not opposed by the applicant. Quite a few of them. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to, without going through, is there one that we can just pick and determine that that one may guide us on where we're going from here? Because it seems to be the traffic issue.
This is Henry. I'll chime in. So all the traffic ones are essentially blue because those have been the things that have come in as of late.
Is there
What's our
is there
choices?
something that in the counselors' minds that if it doesn't get fixed, we're done? Is there something that you want to discuss that if we can't fix that, we're done?
Macy Street is not ours to do anything with. Yes, we can, I know part of it is, but to go through to the new development, there's nothing there.
And I agree with that, but in the future, if the north end and the comprehensive plan does state that we should be considering for the future. So Macy Street, yes, it doesn't affect anything, but I think we have to provide for that future element of connecting Macy Street. So yes, I agree with you. It doesn't help the transportation issue now. And I don't think we need to beat that one anymore. But I think the right of way should be set up so that we can acquire that private property between and hook that up. And the same thing with Van Dyne. That's the only way I look at those. They do not help us at all with the current transportation questions that we're asking. I agree. They have nothing to do with helping that situation right now.
So the real question we have at this point is, what's our options?
The option is that we can accept what these conditions that the staff is presenting here. We can modify these options or these conditions, or we can deny the applicant. The other option is we can continue, but we only have 3 days before we've reached our max. So do we all agree we're not going to go to that one?
Can we agree that we don't accept the conditions?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's off.
I have a question.
Counselor Alexander.
On the tax lot, there's that little finger that goes west. That is Lynn County?
Lane County. And it's outside of the urban growth boundary.
Okay.
You're talking about like the panhandle that goes.
Yeah,
across
it's like
the
a little
top.
handle.
Yeah, it's outside of the urban growth boundary, outside of the city limits, so we can't do anything with it. It's all county land on that. And there's been some, it's hard to describe, but that was drawn into some of our maps as the urban growth boundary, but it's not. It's down below. There was some misrepresentation in some of them.
And why don't we want to go down the road of talking to Lynn County?
Henry?
Well, I mean, it's kind of late for that, and Andy might want to chime in
Yeah,
here. I'm not sure it's even allowed to have a city street go to county property zoned EFU back into the city.
Yeah, and the other issue is that we haven't really talked about it, but part of the application is that they're doing a partition. So they're dividing that northern part of the property that's outside the city from the inside the city. And all we're really looking at right now is one of those properties of the partition. And it doesn't.
So, question.
Councilor Fox.
Thus, there would be like if we could imagine it, a flip forward or a flip up to the top, and there would be more traffic without additional egress.
Correct. That's a potential, but you're looking in a crystal ball trying to figure out what's happening. And essentially what they're proposing with these stub outs on the north end of the map here that's being shown is really what I'm saying needs to be done for Macy and Van Dyne also, because we have to plan for additional growth and maintain that grid. But those are all things in the future. They don't help us now.
Right. Well, I continue to have a problem with the Coleman as the one thing. I like the bolsters, whatever they're called, the balusters.
Bollards.
Bollards, thanks.
The post.
The post, there you go. But I'm stressed. And I'm surprised no one from Coleman. It was interesting. The one person who said, the notices they got returned, that no one from Coleman has joined this discussion. And if they had heard what they heard tonight, I think they would have had a few hairs raised on their back.
I will agree, and we will hear about it.
Yeah. You guys. Gals. Oh, God.
Is there any way that we're going to approve this as presented?
No.
No.
I'm a no. And again, I like it. I'm sure they make great homes and stuff. It's just the in and out.
Yeah.
And because of the Hayden home development, there's no park over there. And that would have benefited from a rumpus area. And so, every new development, unless it's, an individual house, should have that in mind, a green space, a usable green space.
Well, I heard 3 no's. And this concerns me. I just don't think this is well thought out. I agree. It's that hard part about where I think the development, I'm in favor of the development. It's just a transportation issue, that ingress egress of, even with Coleman and Skinner on it, I'm having a tough time. But then to put bollards in and push it all over to Coleman, I can't go there because it will turn Coleman into a highway. And I know that because I'm on the other end of Coleman, on the south end of town, and Coleman is a highway for everybody from the south end of town.
Yes.
It is also a shortcut for people that are trying to avoid the street light, where they come down Coleman, zip across to the pizza joint and zip out, just like they will do around the park.
And people are already using it to get to the, is it the Hayden Homes to the east? Yeah. They're already using Coleman to get there.
Counselor Lehman.
So with that comment, are we effectively not going to have development on the urban growth boundary in this area in the future until such time as there's a third egress into this subdivision?
Are you asking all of
We-
us?
Yeah,
Till
I
we
mean,
put it out Macy or,
we just made recent conversations about a third well for future growth in the community, and now we're looking at just squashing the development.
Because it's not well thought out.
Is
The
there
issue,
a possibility for future growth in this area, or is it just
Absolutely.
dead deal?
But when it's, absolutely, but when it's thought out correctly. When we
Wh-
don't
where-
bypass.
where would you put the future growth? Where's it gonna
You-
be?
It's gonna have to mean that we really do acquire Macy and Van Dyne. Then you have 4 entrances. That
And
would
you could
probably
put
help a lot.
bollards. And you could put bollards on Skinner and make it still bicycle access and protect the whole core of our city.
I
It's-
like the idea of the bollards, Counselor McConnell. I agree with that because it is so close to the park. But I can't go for that until there's another access. That
Oh,
would mean
absolutely,
Van Dyne
yeah.
or Macy are gonna have to be dealt with. Because I can't vote for anything that's gonna put it all on Coleman for sure. I can't do that. So you know where I stand with that.
And neither can I.
Skinner and Coleman, you're gonna have to convince me.
And Macy's the most logical one. It's the top end, and the guy said not in my lifetime. So we'd have to find out what the. I think that would be one of the keys. What is the negotiation point there, and how do we shorten not his lifetime, but
He would
his-
appreciate that.
his desire? He said he's in favor of the subdivision. Well,
Yeah, but I don't want anything happening in my backyard. I mean, that's
NIMBY.
basically what we're dealing with NIMBYs.
Counselor
mean,
Lane.
I have to disagree with Counselor Bell on that. I think that the not in my backyard is, an issue we have to deal with. But when it involves our park and our entire structure of what this city is, that's a different story.
I agree with Councilor McConnell.
Yeah.
Counselor Lehman.
So I really found that Kathy Edwardson's August 12th letter compelling. And one of the things that she says is that if an application is meeting 100% of the code criteria, it must be approved. And even if one code criteria is not met, then it must be denied. And so in the application, we had our planning commission approve it. We had the city planner, the city engineer, the parks approve it, and the fire marshal approve it. So in denying, we must be stating that there is at least one code criteria that is
Yeah.
in violation. Would that be a correct assessment?
That would be like the street connectivity, correct?
Well, if
Is
she's
that
correct,
written in here?
saying, she says if the application is 100% meeting the code criteria, which our staff has said it does, the fire marshal agrees, the city engineer, the city planner agrees. So for us as a city council to disapprove it, we must come up with the conclusion that at least one of the criteria is in violation. Because if 100% of the criteria is
No, I got it. I mean, I read that. It's Article 8. E1F2 street connectivity, right?
So which criteria are we saying is in violation?
So,
The
and
criteria would be the subdivision does not provide a temporary dead end. No, sorry. Streets are planned. Where's
No.
the access point is determined?
Okay,
The
so
access points have been determined.
if we want to deny it, I think we should identify that there's at least one criteria that is in violation.
What you may want to do is you may want to look at Teresa Bishop's draft denial findings. Because she's set out the criteria that she indicates she doesn't believe are satisfied. And then, so if you look at that and find that you agree with one or two or three of those, then that's what you want to base it on.
Yeah, all I'm saying is that if we want to deny it, I think we should do it based on a code violation rather than just a feeling that we don't want the development because of the traffic impacts without specifically referencing it to a code violation.
Yeah, I get your point. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I'm fine with that. If the council agrees that there is a code violation, then it should be denied. If the council agrees with the staff report and the findings of the planning commission and the city engineer and the city planner and the fire marshal, then it should be approved.
So Henry, there are no evident code violations because everything's been appeased by the planner.
Well, the code's not, black and white. There are room for
Right.
and topographic constraints, things like that.
And one of the questions is the
Position
original,
that when we have a planning commission decision, that we just simply overturn it because we just don't like the idea of the development.
It's not about not liking it. It's about the safety.
Yeah.
Let's point it out which code violation is.
Code.
I wouldn't know the violation, but it's not about liking it or not liking it. It's about safety. One street going in and out is not safe.
Okay, so let's just identify which code violation was made.
Henry, can you pull up that, transportation, it's kind of that, because discretionary, transportation.
Article 8. Might, I think.
Well,
there's-
the appellate denial findings, is that what you're referencing? Yeah. So that has findings to deny the subdivision, and there's multiple denials in here that she refers to.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, in your options, and even at maybe the things to know, if council wants to deny, they can simply point to the findings of fact that support denials submitted by Teresa Bishop, and that would be your decision as council, is based on those findings contained in there.
I mean, yeah, you look at the
Thank
parking
you.
on North Skinner and North Coleman, and North Skinner will not fit a 20-foot wide paved street and 2 8-foot wide areas of paved parking for parked cars. That's one of her denials.
so I look at one of the biggest issues for me is listed in that, and I believe it's page 18 of 28, Article 7C2, C5. The subdivision does not contribute to the orderly development of the city's transportation network and places an unsafe burden on narrow substandard streets south of the subdivision. That truly is my main concern over this development.
But we can, according to Henry, we can just refer back to this whole report. Is that correct, Henry?
Refer back to the, so
Can I pipe in, Henry?
yeah, please.
You can definitely just use that as your decision. I mean, that's basically why she put that report together, is so that you could just adopt her findings as the denial.
I have a question.
Counselor Fox.
Regardless of the code, which was made, brought up before, and that was in the back of my mind, you brought up, as mayor, the fact that there's something about keeping the continuity of the culture and charm of the city continuous. How does that align with the codes, and how can that be referenced? Because that's part about it.
Can I comment
Go
on
ahead,
that?
Ann Davies.
Yeah, so, and I think this is what the mayor was kind of getting at, is that the comprehensive plan has these more aspirational type wishes for the city. Legally, what happens is the code gets adopted to implement those aspirational, more wishy-washy things. So what we're looking at is the code. So technically what's supposed to happen is those aspirational ideas get put into code language. So,
Winnowed down into a code.
yeah, so you're not looking at the comprehensive plan policies when you're looking at what you can deny on.
Okay.
I stated that just to say that I believe in the comprehensive plan and how these codes were meant to be applied. And so when you look at these issues, you find the code issue that addresses our concern. And I've stated the one that I have that definitely applies to this. And if you look at the appellant report and then most of the public testimony, it is the transportation issue that I listed there. That's on page 18, I believe it was, of the document.
But I do like the idea of accepting this document because it does all, it comes together with concerns about Macy Street and Van Dyne and Skinner and Coleman and streets. It's very complete if we just accept this.
I guess you get what you pay for.
I would agree with Councilor McConnell. You know, Councilor Lehman is right. We do need to cite something, I think, to substantiate this. And we have talked, and a lot of other people have talked, and we've got a ream of paper to sit here and go through all of these. There's just so many issues in this that I feel uncomfortable with, but the transportation issue is the biggest part of it. And I would be comfortable with taking the appellant's statement as the basis for it.
I agree.
Councilor Lehman.
So is there anything that the applicant can do to come back, to withdraw his application and to come back with any modifications that the counselors think would be sufficient enough for them to approve an application, a revised application?
Purchase the property on Macy.
Or is it just an issue because there's not a third potential egress entrance into this property?
Why?
I would agree with Councilor McConnell, I'm sorry, but
go ahead.
To enter in negotiations with the gentleman, I forget his name, and they don't even have to purchase it. You know, we could talk about how that could all be worked out. You know, it's outside of their plan, but how can we get that egress so that can be an entrance to this subdivision that would allow for a much better flow of traffic and pedestrians and everything?
So I want Ann Davies to support me on this or shoot me down. We can't negotiate that. We need to ask, we need to deal with its current development. And we've discussed it, and so they know it's a point. But beyond that, if it's denied, again, what Henry stated, they can't reapply for a year with anything that is substantially similar. And so, Ann, this is where I'm asking she told me this yesterday. The council is the one that determines whether this is substantially similar. And if we state that the appellant statement is our concern, if they address all of those, this is not going to be a substantially similar application. And thus would remove that 1 year requirement before reapplication.
Yeah, that's right. I think what I understood Councillor Fox to be saying was that, yeah, once we deny this, then we, the city, should go and negotiate with that property owner to figure out how to get that access. So the next time the developer, I think that's what you were saying, Councillor Fox. Is
Yeah, something to that effect, or, everybody negotiate with them, or, so yes. So we find out how we can address the egress and make it the plan whole.
Councillor Lehman.
So I could support denial of the application based on one specific criteria, that it is detrimental to the safety of the traffic flow into the park area, as opposed to saying we're going to take the entire report by Teresa Bischow and say it's the entire report.
Right.
Because there are things in that report that I think we would agree are acceptable. So I would like to see us not say the entire report, but narrow it down to what I've heard the other counselors say is the true, real issue for denying this.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think for me, it's the access. I think Skinner is not a viable option. So I think having an ability to get access from Macy and Van Dunn are going to make it a much more feasible project. Not that I am not against the development at all. Just I'm not sure I've mentioned that, but I think Weichert does a great job. I think the subdivision will be beautiful once it's complete, but safety comes first, and the existing neighborhood comes first. So however we need to manage that.
So go ahead. So I may be speaking over Henry. He may want to add into this, but if that is the general consensus, we have 4 days to issue this decision. So we may want to craft that explanation right now tonight, so that the mayor, we can type it up. Everyone agrees what it says, and the mayor can sign it before 4 days are up.
So
Agreed.
we're looking for a summary of the issue, and I read this, I'll read it again. Again, it's on page 18 of the appellant statement. Article 12C.2.C5, orderly transportation system. The subdivision
Your
does not
Honor?
contribute.
We'll withdraw our application at this time, and we've heard everything everybody has to say, and we'll take it all under very serious consideration. This time we'll make it easier for everyone. We will withdraw our application right now.
Mr. Weichert, I want to say I echo what I have heard from many of even the appellants. We're not against this subdivision coming in, and we're certainly not. We've heard everything good about you. I honestly haven't heard anything bad about your company and what you do, but this is a tough situation, and I think you understand where we're coming from, and I hope that you can work something out to make this happen.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate everything you folks are saying here tonight too. So we will continue to work on it. It is, as you know, very difficult. We can't control things that are outside of our property. But we'll keep working on it, and we'll try to make it better. And I understand and known from the beginning that the access is the difficulty, and we will keep working on that.
Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
Mr. Weichert, Councillor Alexander had a statement, I think.
I look forward to working with someone like you when we have all of our T's crossed and our I's dotted.
Thank you very much.
I echo that. Thank you.
Councillor McConnell. Any other statements from councillors? At this time, Ann Davies, what do we need to do as far as the council they've already withdrawn the application. Do we need something formalized with that as council?
Very good question. I've never dealt with this situation before.
Of course, we'll leave it to Coburg.
We've got the planning commission decision. It's been appealed. I mean, they've withdrawn it. I think that maybe we just confirm, make a statement confirming that it's been withdrawn. And that the planning commission decision is no longer valid.
Do we need a motion?
So does that, because it's the de novo, it's our decision, and basically the planning commission at this point, that is an invalid.
It's in, yeah, I think that, I don't think you need a motion. I think that just stating that the application's been withdrawn, and so therefore the planning commission decision is no longer valid, and the end of the day.
Okay, well said, Ann. Did the minutes taker get that?
I would just,
Councilor Lehman.
I would just comment that the planning commission's decision is still valid. It's just no longer relevant.
Well, the application's been withdrawn. So I don't think it has any significance, which is kind of what I meant when I say it's not valid.
Right. But invalid means to say that it was wrong. I just think it's no longer relevant because it's been withdrawn.
I don't think wrong or right relates to invalid.
Done.
Right.
So, Ann.
Of no
and-
effect. It is of no effect.
No effect, yeah.
So we just end our meeting? Is that what we do?
Congratulate each other.
Well,
Got
you know,
done before midnight?
it doesn't feel like a congratulations because
No.
Well,
it does affect.
congratulations, meaning everyone, I just feel like
We worked hard.
everyone took it considered everything really carefully. And I appreciate how your body works. I mean, I've always enjoyed working with Coburg because everyone listens to each other and it's rational conversation, which you don't always get.
And I do want to
you, Ann.
thank all of the counselors, especially because these are tough issues. Land use planning, when it comes to council, is always a ream of paper and a lot of work, and stressing through days and nights of reading and stuff and trying to grasp it. As a former planning commissioner myself, these things are always very frustrating. I do appreciate all of the work that the staff put into this. Tremendous amount of work, Sammy, Megan, and Heath, and many more, I'm sure, because there was an awful lot of work when you just look at the paperwork, let alone thinking of all of the citizens' comments that Sammy corralled and brought forth to us and really put in a somewhat organized, in a very good organized manner, but with some little slips here and there. Tremendous amount of information that was really coordinated well. So thank you to Sammy and the others that helped her with that. And again, like Ann said, I enjoy working with the council. I think that you guys get to the point, you say things. I try to let you say things, and sometimes we go on for a while, but we usually do get to the point and we make good decisions because we talk about it and we take a lot of input. I would also like to thank Ann Davies and Henry. I've yet to meet Henry in person, but I've talked to him a lot. And I want to thank them for the work, because when you realize that Henry stepped into this after Jeff left, he had a big pickup to carry on with this. So thank you very much to Henry and Ann Davies, of course. Is there any other final statements or comments from council? With that, I will adjourn this meeting at 9:42 and thank everybody for all their efforts in this.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
All right.